Let's see. Oh, the Facebook is going to work on the first shot. Okay. Well, we should be live on Facebook shortly. Yeah, so I'm just, I'm tired. Well, we should be live on Facebook shortly. I never seem to really get any rest, and I'm just, I'm in pain all the time. Tired. Seems like she and I are never really healthy, fortunately. So,
well, battle off stress. That's one way to stay healthier.
Yeah, well, I can't. That's the problem.
It's tough.
I used to work out like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to work out, but I can't. Not when you're in this much pain. My back is really not any better. It's not going to get any better, apparently. Let's start doing some sharing. That'll be fun. It's always fun. I always enjoy making many, many, many clicks. Oh, goodness. How's Mr. Thomas? Bronze?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, he's happily lying asleep in front of the fireplace.
Oh, the fireplace. It's not cold up there, is it?
Well, I don't have the fireplace running right now. Oh. It's a ersatz place. It uses gas. Not real wood, not real fire.
And that's just one
of those manage to keep my house warm.
So that's one of his favorite spots.
Propane is what I wanted to say.
Is that one of his favorite spots?
When it's chilly, yeah. Well, next to my lap. He's quite a lap cat. But I haven't been able to train him to retract his claws when he gets on my lap.
Yeah.
One of the downsides. Still, I don't hold it against him. Good cat, very loyal. Likes people. Hates cats. Strange.
The dog celebrated her first birthday this week.
Oh, well, pass along my happy birthday compliments.
She's been with us almost 6 months, and she's October, November, December, January, February. Yeah, about 6 months. And
doing well?
She's starting to settle in. She's had a rough few days because we have not felt well. We've been in an awful lot of pain, and she hasn't. We've not been able to take her to just run and be crazy as she would like. And so she's not happy. And then this morning, she was kind of not barking, but like kind of yelping and kind of like, hey, we need to get out of here. We got to go. We need to go do things. I'm like, yeah, well, we do need to go do things, but guess what? They're not running around in a circle. So man, we got work to do. Mom and I both have stuff to do. So
well, she'll catch on eventually.
She's only been out a couple times today, really, and just mostly to do her business. So she's not particularly happy.
Well, they have energy.
Yeah, she sure as hell does. So
same with youngsters. I remember when I had energy. That was a long time ago.
It's weird. It's a very weird thing happening right there. It's new. Never saw that before. Oh, Facebook. How doth tease me so much. No, I don't have to do that necessarily. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, technology. How you tease me. Did go through.
I don't know how you handle it.
I don't know how I handle it either. Not well.
I don't even
You know how I
try.
handle it? I handle it with a good Irish temper. And that's not always that's not always handling it. Let's just be honest. That's not always quote unquote handling it.
I have a question. I wonder if you could answer it. I know you have sometimes used a particular word, a euphemism for excrement, that you claim as an Irish word.
Shite.
But it sounds it sounds exactly like the German word for the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's Irish slang from what I can gather.
Well, I think they picked it up from the Germans.
It's a way to express some frustrations without being overtly foul, I suppose.
Talking about words, you know how many foreign words we see in movies we don't recognize and don't understand? Are you old enough to remember ever seeing a movie called The Blue Max starring George Peppard?
No.
Okay.
I'm not seeing
This story about a First World War German ace. The situation was showing how an average guy, other than an aristocrat, didn't get the credit they deserved for being aces in the air. And Peppard played a young German non-aristocrat. What dawned on me the other day, the character in the movie, his name is Bruno Stockel. And I didn't realize it, and then it occurred to me, the name Stockel, you know what that German word means?
Who do I want to know?
It's a slang dirty word.
Euphemism.
A slang dirty word for the male organ.
No, oh, go wonderful.
Yeah. So anybody not knowledgeable in German would never.
I would suspect either the writers of the movie thought they were being cheeky or they didn't know any better.
Yeah. I think more of the former. There's enough Yiddish out there, enough people with Yiddish knowledge as well as German that would know that word. I'm sure that was deliberate. Another movie takes place in Kavala, Greece, and there's a obviously gay guy there, and he annoyed somebody else, and the guy he annoyed yelled at him a Greek word. Now let me think of it.
Careful now.
Valkanye. Well, I checked that with a Greek American friend, and yeah, it means gay, queer. So I'm learning languages a word at a time.
What
you know, nobody went to that.
Is when I watch, international football, proper football, soccer.
Right.
And you will see these guys, and the gals do it as well when they get wild, really wound up, and they will have a go at the referee, and these folks will speak their native tongue until it comes to the swear words, which always seem to be in English.
more value in learning English, I suppose, or I should say it differently. The effectiveness of English has taken over the world.
Yeah, we're good for something, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the last things we're good for. We're good for something.
Well, the fact that English has become practically the international language, I think, is due entirely to the reign of Elizabeth I. Without her, I don't think that would have happened.
Oh, 4:59. Okay, I need to
shut up. I'll
Eat
mute
off to the
myself.
boys' room. I'll be right back.
Oh, all right. Son of a bitch.
Oh, that would explain it. That would explain it when your headset's backward. No wonder it feels weird. Hey, it's 5:01. What do you say, kids? Let's have a radio program.
Okay, I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go off and mute, so I'll just
All
listen.
right, sir. We will be live in 3, 2.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Welcome, 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 welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in these United States, Western Hemisphere, North American continent on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 26th. Yes, right. Yes, 26th. I got something with dates, gang. 26th of March, 2023. We are at the end of March already, basically. Where is this year going? And considering kind of sort of how the year is going, it can't go fast enough. So we're good with that. That said, welcome, 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 and thank you for being here. We did take a week off last week, but clearly we are back again this week. And it is good to be back with you all. And I would like to say very quickly a little bit of business, and that is a very, very a big thank you to so many, everybody. I know that I usually say this at the beginning of every program, but big, big, big thanks to every group, every individual, everybody that shares this program on their little slice of the Facebook universe. Our shares have gone up. The number of groups allowing us in has gone up. The number of people who seem to be catching the program even well after we sign off for the day seems to be going up, and that's a good thing. I do not make any money on this program. We have no advertising. I do the program because I think it's the right thing to do. No one who ever watches or listens to the program is obligated in any way, shape, or form to agree with me. But at least if we can begin to talk to each other again, that's an important thing. And it is good to know that there are some folks out there who still feel that facts still matter. If you want to disagree with my point of view, by God, do so. It's one of the things that America's built on, but facts are facts are facts are facts. The earth is round, gravity exists, sky is generally blue, grass is generally green. And we are all human beings and we all have rights. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So business end of the program, wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, thank you for being there. And thank you even more for allowing us into your groups, on your personal pages, on your national open public pages, private groups, public groups, whatever it might be. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. This program reaches, it doesn't mean that every single one of you is listening, although you should be. We reach about 250,000 people around the globe each week, and that continues to grow, and we're very, very grateful for it. So thank you for allowing us in your little slice of the Facebook universe. If you want to stay and continue to watch where you are, please do so. I will do the very, very best I can to make sure that if you are commenting on us in any one of the 104 places that we have shared the show this week, then I will try to keep up with your comments if you should happen to comment in any other place. If you would like to come to our home group Facebook page, that other side of information, I will see you straight away. Say hello, say welcome, see your questions, see your comments, and so on and so on and so on. Later in the program, we will open up the phone lines. He said singular, the phone line for you later in the program. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. We are humbled and proud and continue to be so to be part of the Hot101.net family, listening literally around the globe. For some of you, it's already Monday morning, so happy Monday. Back to work Monday. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your day as well. However it is that you take in Hot101.net. If you have any type of device that can connect to the internet, then you can listen to Hot101.net, the originator of global internet radio. Your desktop, your laptop, a tablet, a phone, a Bluetooth speaker. You can Bluetooth it in the car, Bluetooth headphones, and you can tell your smart speaker, hey Alexa, play Hot101.net. And of course, TCP, the TCP Media Group from right here in our humble Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, right from Lancaster, the TCP Media Group. We continue to be part of their family, broadcast family as well, and continue to be humbled to be exactly that. That is the business end of the program. You survived, and it's only 5:08. How cool is that? Sometimes the business end of the program goes way, way, way deep, but not today. We are getting straight to it because I'm not sure that if I did our airtime is 4 hours. We do not always take that 4 hours. Perhaps we simply run out of things to say. Perhaps I don't feel well and I have to get the hell out of this chair because my back is screaming at me so badly, like it is right now. Or any one of a myriad, maybe Daisy the dog starts barking and I have to go take care of her. And we don't always take 4 hours, but today 4 hours may not be enough because the personality on your screen is a huge one. And 4 hours might not cover it. If you read the header for the post of the program, and if you read the header for the show announcement, you know what we're talking about today. On Friday, the last day of March, 31st of March, is a very timely, to say the least, timely, and very important public rally happening at the Pennsylvania State Capitol. Now, for those of you who are kind enough to take in our show from around the country, we happen to have a very large group of listeners in Oregon, for example. Not the only place, but we happen to have quite a number in Oregon. We also have them in Australia and New Zealand and places around the globe. I do sometimes get a little too Pennsylvania centric, but this is an extremely important event and it's an extremely timely event. The Trans Day of Visibility Rally for School Equality is happening this coming Friday, March the 31st, 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, right on the Capitol steps of the Pennsylvania State Capitol in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That was a contest to see how many times I could say Pennsylvania in the same sentence. And one of the leading organizers and one of the preeminent advocates and trans voices, if not the preeminent trans voice and advocate and person herself, is Daye Pope. And she is here. I think this is your second or third time here. I can't remember now, but regardless, you were kind enough to come back and talk to us about this extremely important event. I don't know if you planned the timing of this event to coincide with what seems to be just an avalanche of anti-trans media phobias, fake phobias, legislation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or if you had it planned before this terrible avalanche seems to have come across. But the timeliness of this really can't be, you really can't escape it. I mean, the timing of this is probably, I was going to say the usual turn of phrase would be it couldn't be better, but it kind of couldn't be worse that you even have to have such a thing like this in the first place. On the header of the show announcement, I put that trans rights are human rights. Seems a very simple concept, but really, this rally is to try to reinforce the fact that trans rights are human rights and that you're human just like the rest of us. And what a shame, almost, because you are coming together in a sense of fellowship and community with this event, but kind of the theme of it is almost a sad thing in a way. I'm not saying the event is sad. I'm just saying the reason that it has to happen really is kind of sad. I think you know what I'm getting at. But so tell us, remind the folks, even though you have been with us before, who is Daye Pope and how did you get here?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me again.
I told you were always welcome here when something was going on. I wanted you to come back. So you did.
Yes, you meant it. And thank you for anyone who's tuning in. I think you really said it. You know, I wish there were a happier reason to be coming together, but we're coming together for the Trans Day of Visibility Rally for School Equality on March 31st, like you said, at 1 p.m. at the state capitol steps in Harrisburg, because of the environment that's happening around the country around trans rights. And I know people have seen the headlines, and if you haven't, definitely check it out. So many different states are attacking trans kids, specifically trying to keep them from being able to use the facilities, the bathrooms, and be in the sports that match their gender identity in schools, trying to keep them from getting any kind of gender affirming care. Some states like Florida are even trying to make it so that trans kids can be forcefully taken away from their parents, and affirming your kids is called child abuse. In Alabama, for instance, there's a felony ban that's going through the courts right now that would literally throw parents and doctors in jail for helping their trans young people access gender affirming care. And it's this environment that's been building over the last couple of years that stirred the PA Coalition for Trans Youth, which I helped co-found, into action. Because we actually started in 2021 around the state of Pennsylvania to respond to a bill here that was trying to ban trans kids from being in the sports and the facilities in school that match their gender identity, HB 972. And we're very grateful that that has not become the law of the land in Pennsylvania. But what we've seen is that even though we are lucky to have governors then and now who promised to veto such legislation if it passes through the state houses, what's been happening is that school boards in Pennsylvania have been taking it upon themselves to introduce their own local version of these anti-trans attacks on young people in schools. You have Pencrest in Western PA, you have Hempfield in Central PA, you have Central Bucks, which has gotten in the news and had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees for trying to ban every book under the sun that has any kind of diverse narrative in it for kids. And so the metaphor we've been using at the PA Coalition for Trans Youth is that it's like all these brush fires are breaking out around our state, and we don't have a statewide law that clarifies either way how to include and protect kids in schools when they come out as wanting to use different pronouns, or when they come out as a different gender than they might have been assigned at birth. It's school board to school board. So you could be in one school district and be totally affirmed and safe. And then you could cross over, you move, let's say, to another school district, and immediately there's a crackdown on your rights. And we are formed to try to change that, because it's making an unsafe environment in our schools. It's encouraging bullying, trigger warning. We know directly of a couple of young trans people taking their own life just in the last school year alone, in one school district in PA that introduced this kind of anti-trans policy. So this is a crisis of young people and their mental health, and whether or not we're going to affirm our young people. So I'm an advocate with the PA Coalition for Trans Youth and for TAKE, and we're really a group that's neighbors, parents, advocates, concerned citizens from all over the state who come together because we see what's happening in all these other states. And there are legislators here in Pennsylvania that are trying to pass those same Don't Say Gay, anti-trans sports ban, anti-trans healthcare bans. And we're saying, let's not wait until they build the critical mass or they get the right amount of seats to actually make this law. Let's proactively stop them in their tracks and build the grassroots power and introduce proactive, positive laws that say Pennsylvania is going to join our neighbors like New Jersey and New York in actually setting affirming standards for our schools. And by the way, in both of those states, nothing terrible has happened. Life goes on. Women's sports aren't taken down by this. You know, our schools don't become a hotbed of anything. The schools just stay a place of learning where everyone can be affirmed and protected, instead of having them become this site of the culture war, which is what's happening in PA, and is what's happening in a lot of states around the country.
Before we, it's going to sound stupid. Before we start at the beginning, tell everybody what's going to be happening Friday. What is the event going to look like? What is taking place? What what events around the event might be happening, and walk everybody through what's going to be happening on Friday.
Yes. So Friday, March 31st at 1 p.m., we're meeting for a rally for school equality on the state capitol steps in Harrisburg. And so we have been working with State Representative Hohenstein to draft a proactive bill to protect trans kids in school across PA, to stop those school districts from discriminating. And Representative Hohenstein is going to be one of our speakers. He'll be able to give an update on those efforts to introduce that bill. And we'll have a whole host of other speakers and concerned community members that are making the case and asking other legislators support this bill when it gets introduced, so that we can nip this in the bud. We don't have to spend the next 5 years arguing about trans kids in schools. We can just say our schools are not a place of discrimination now up front, and sidestep having this whole tortured debate that hurts young people. We're going to have an impacted trans teen speak. who's in one of these school districts. We're going to have parents of trans kids who are worried about their children speak. We're going to have some community members from the trans community, as well as legislators, like I said, speaking to make basically every side of the case of why we need to get out in front of this and protect young people. There will be activities for families who are bringing younger kids. Like, we've got some crafts going on. We're going to be there, rain or shine. We're going to have posters, and you can make your own poster. And we want it to be an affirming place where we're sharing a message of love, as well as sharing this message about the legislation that we need, because we know that there are going to be LGBTQ young people there. There are going to be families there who have been watching all of this bad news and have had it impacting their spirit in such a damaging way. So it's also going to be a celebratory, fun space for people to enjoy. Right after the rally, anyone who's interested can take a tour of the Capitol building, because it is, the people's building. And so we'll be able to walk around a little bit. And afterwards, from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Harrisburg, just a few blocks away at the Glow Center, which is an LGBTQ drop-in center and service center, we're going to have refreshments, free refreshments, and a chance for people to socialize, rest before they, start their drive home, or whatever that looks like, because we know sometimes these events can also be intense, and there's a little bit of a palate cleanser, debrief, just low-key chance to grab some food and hang out with other people that share your values and that care about these young people at the Glow Center afterwards. So we're having people, I've heard from people all over the state who are coming in. I think it's going to be a big moment for the community. I think it's going to be a powerful statement to legislators to say, this is not a fringe issue. People all over the state are tired of what's happening and care about equal rights and keeping our schools free of discrimination. And I think it's honestly going to be fun. So we're hopeful that we're going to get a big crowd. People are going to get a great update about the legislation that Representative Hohenstein is helping draft with us. We're going to hear from some amazing young people and advocates, and we're going to make the case to the state that we don't have to go the way of Florida and Alabama and Tennessee and keep fighting about these issues when the right thing to do is staring us in the face, and it's just to protect young people.
I realize that it sounds almost flippant to say, and I don't mean it that way. God knows. But if these districts have nothing else to worry about other than this, then boy, they must be running really, really good districts. But we know that they do have so much more to worry about, including all the way from HVAC systems that were never updated after the pandemic, through teacher shortages, through building maintenance, bus routes, emergency communications, shooter activities, all these other things. I find it hard to believe that so many school districts in our Commonwealth have nothing else to deal with other than this. Boy, how well run all these districts must be, that this is the singular most important topic that is facing them at the moment. I want to ask you, I want to try to start at the beginning. I do have something in my notes that I don't want to forget about. So I'm going to go horribly out of order. Because I think this week actually or this past week really, maybe it was a bit of serendipity. I honestly don't know, but two very interesting articles came out of The Guardian this week. And they were very diametrically opposed in their thrust and in their point of view. One came from the World Athletics Council in a Queen's English. Athletics would generally mean track and field, but it's not restricted to that. That is going to ban trans female athletes, period, end of story. They cannot compete anymore. If they have gone through gender reassignment post-puberty, they are no longer eligible to compete, period. Then, on the other hand, we had a second story come out that affirms the fact that trans folks who have made the transition are markedly happier than they were prior. how do you square those two things from your own self, from your own being, and in all the work that you do? Because it seems to me like one is an enormous step back, and yet the other just proves what you've been saying all along, that folks are just trying to live their own truth and their own personal, capital P maybe, personal lives. How do you square those two things? Or can you? Maybe you can't. Maybe we can't even square those two things.
It's interesting because parents are often telling their kids, live your truth, don't go with the crowd, don't give into peer pressure, be true to yourself. And then they turn around and say, oh, wait, not like that. When you're queer, when you're trans, when you express yourself differently. But
Right.
those original messages that sound a little bit trite are true. You know, no amount of worldly success or acceptance from other people can make up for not feeling that you're living in alignment with your truth. And I think that so many of these arguments against trans youth in particular right now are coming from the idea that this could do harm to young people. And I think that that's an argument that's not in good faith. But I think that some individual parents who get caught up in that argument may be genuine and just thinking, oh no, like I'm in charge of the well-being of my little one and I want to make sure that they're okay. And I don't understand this stuff. And what if they end up regretting something? Or what if they're not okay? What if I'm not doing the right thing? And you hear that as part of the journey of every parent, even who ends up learning more and accepting and embracing their trans child. They have to go through that whole thing of, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about this. I don't know what I think about this. I'm worried about my kids' safety and whether this is the right thing for them. But time after time, studies show that the vast majority of trans people are happier. Our mental health outcomes get better. Our physical health outcomes get better. We're not committing suicide. We're not self-harming, where our levels of addiction drop off significantly, because there really is something that is profoundly psychologically painful about not living in your truth. And that's true of, I think, everyone, not just LGBTQ folks. You know, maybe we've all had a situation where we realize we're on a path that doesn't actually fit who we are, and it can be really painful. The flip side is when you come out, you have to deal with a world that is largely violent and discriminatory against the community. And so I think it's even more striking that still a vast majority of us, with our experiences of violence and discrimination in this world for being trans, are still saying, yep, I prefer this to not living in my truth. But I also want to say, just as a side note, a lot of people get really caught up in these like adult athlete arguments as they pertain and try to apply them to kids. And we have to return to the idea that for most kids, sports are a way to build teammanship. You know, if you're in fourth grade, it's not about who wins the race as much as it's about you get a chance to learn physical activity, you get a chance to learn how to be on a team, how to work together with people. There's so much misinformation about what, you know, physical changes make certain things unfair, but just having whatever your gender is, just having the genetics of being 6 foot tall instead of 5 foot tall will make you more likely to win in track, right? There's not a conversation about including disabled kids. So the sports conversation gets so complicated already because people are conflating like Olympic level sports, where a lot of it is about competing and doing your absolute best. And maybe there's a conversation to have about what's an unfair advantage and what isn't. But with kids, sports are mostly to build teammanship, sportsmanship. And you see that even these sports leagues who are, quote unquote experts are getting confused about how to deal with Caster Semenya, for example, a cis woman. And so there's a lot of policing about who's allowed to benefit from the natural benefits that they might have just genetically or physically. But not to make it too complicated, I'm not personally an athlete, but Michael Phelps was born with the genes to have extremely long arms and lung capacity. And is that fair? Like, it just opens a can of worms where you're asking, how can we police the natural variation in the human body across over 8 billion people to say, oh no, this is unfair now because this woman has too much testosterone, but this isn't unfair over here that you just happen to be 7 foot tall when you grew up, and so now basketball teams are recruiting you. Like, where do you draw that line?
Mm-hmm. And by the way, youth sports, God willing, should be about sportsmanship and teamwork and learning how to win and learning how to lose. I don't know that they are as much as they should be, because there's even a great deal of money involved in youth sports, but I certainly understand what you're saying. 5:31 Eastern Time, the Kennedy Effect is live with you for the 26th. I've only said that, I don't know how many times already in the first half hour, and I've already forgotten what day it is. The 26th of March, 2023. We are live, and we are thrilled that you are here with us wherever you might be across your little slice of the Facebook universe. Thank you for being there, and thank you for allowing us to be in your groups and on your pages and on your individual stories. We appreciate it very, very much. Stay there, watch, enjoy, listen, learn, debate, yell at the screen if you think I'm all full of you-know-what. Tell me about it. I will do my very, very best to keep track of all of your comments from wherever they may come in. If you would like to come over to our home group Facebook page, please do so. That other side of information. And always remember, if you ever miss any of our live program, if you join after we have started, you can always find our program everywhere that it's been shared on Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, and it's also the best place to listen. Our main website, hot101.net. Any type of device that connects to the internet can listen to hot101.net, but you can also use our apps, Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn radio app, and of course the TCP Media Group. I have to ask you, I think, a dark question, but I would rather, I think, ask it at the beginning than save it for the end. Are you concerned for, I might as well just say it, are you concerned for safety on Friday?
Yes, definitely. I think we would be remiss not to think about that when we have families who are showing up. And this is part of, besides being close to any legislators that are in town, this is part of choosing the Capitol steps. There's Capitol Police that will definitely be always on the premises, always keeping track of what's happening, as they do for any of these events that often happen on the Capitol steps. So there will definitely be lots of security, as there always are at this venue. And it has troubled me a little bit just thinking about the environment in this country right now and how intense some of the rhetoric is, to want to make sure that everybody is safe and nobody shows up and thinks that enacting violence is the right thing to do. But we're going to remind our folks, we have first of all, permission to be on these steps right now. We've coordinated with the Capitol Events Office, and counter protesters don't have permission in the same way, because we've been coordinating with the Capitol Events Office for weeks. There will be Capitol Police everywhere around keeping tabs on everything. And if there are counter protesters, we want to keep our message one of affirmation and love. We're not going to engage. We're not going to get into a shouting match. You know, we are going to just continue with our program of sharing with young people that they matter and sharing that we have an actual plan to introduce a bill to change things for the better. And we just have to trust that process. But I, as one of the main organizers of the event, I'm totally open if people want to message me and contact me with their concerns or their differing views. I've put my contact info on all the flyers and everything. So if people really want to make their displeasure known, feel free to contact me instead of maybe showing up on the day of to try to stir any kind of trouble.
Let's try to go back, if we could, to kind of the beginning. I'm sure it's not a short story. I can't imagine that it would be. But who are you? What is your story? What is the path that you took? When, at what point in your life did your self-realization happen and say, this is who I am? Is it something as simple? I guess I'm throwing around the word simple a little too lightly, but I mean, is it something as simple as looking in the mirror one day and saying, this isn't me? Or is it, I don't know. I'm not even going to try to guess or bring up an example, but I mean, if you're willing, can you at all explain to folks, or how do you, when you're asked, explain to folks your own path?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting question because everyone has such an individual way of coming to their own truth, trans or not. But at the same time, there are themes that you pick out when you hear people's stories. I really feel so much for these trans kids because I grew up in rural Iowa and didn't know the word trans, didn't know anything about the community or that this, was a thing that happened in the world. So when I was very young, I was born and people thought I was a boy. And I remember when I was 10, praying every night before bed that I would wake up a girl. And I didn't know that this was a thing that there were words for. I didn't tell my family about it because I was aware enough at a certain point that this seemed like something taboo to pray for. But I remember praying very fervently that I would just wake up a girl because I just knew that that was how things should have been for me. And I sort of felt like very at odds with the expectations that were being placed on me and the world that I was moving through, how it was seeing me. And this was a very intuitive thing. I didn't have any analysis or knowledge about the community at that time. It was just something that came from within that I seemed to know without knowing how I knew. But I went through high school still not really understanding what I was feeling, but I was gender nonconforming. I experienced being according to my peers and sometimes teachers. And then it was really more so when I got to college at a small state school in Iowa after high school that I met some folks who were trans. I was exposed to a larger amount of books and classes that were talking about gender in different ways than I had ever had access to. And that's what really made things click for me, especially, taking a women's and gender studies class. I talked a lot about feminism and women's stories, gender identity. getting access to queer theorists' books and all of that, like that really, and then of course meeting other people, that really made suddenly so many things throughout my life begin to click. And I had worked out after college on a few progressive campaigns, and I had been volunteering since I was a teen for democratic causes because I was very, I started to get politicized by being anti-war with the Iraq War and just all the lies that started coming out about what was happening with the Bush administration, George W., even when I was too young to vote, and I was very incensed by all of those things. So after college and transitioning and knowing who I was, I worked on some campaigns, and then I decided I wanted to take what I was learning about organizing on those campaigns and use it on fighting for my rights, fighting for LGBTQ rights. And so I've worked at a series of organizations that have been doing that in Pennsylvania and nationwide for the last few years. But even though I wasn't out as trans to people when I was young, I knew it without knowing the words, and people picked up on it because I was not gender conforming. And I suffered bullying and harassment and trying to navigate the world as a young person who did not fit. And so now it feels kind of a full circle moment where at the same time that things are better in some ways for trans young people because there's access to books and the internet and so many different, influencers on every platform you can imagine that are talking about community issues that I might have helped me understand what I was feeling much earlier in my life. At the same time, they've become such a flashpoint and such a scapegoat, and they're being attacked mercilessly by well-connected adults in a way that when I was growing up, I didn't have access to the information and people were cruel, but no one was necessarily targeting me in this particular way with this much ferocity. So it's really important to me to just pay it forward and to just, I know how hard I found being a young person in this world and being different and figuring myself out. And I really want to make sure that we're not backsliding, which is what it feels like is happening now, where a 13-year-old who realizes that they're trans today might actually have it worse than 10 or 20 years ago. And it shouldn't be that way.
Two things stick out to me about that. And you correct me if you think I'm off on the wrong path. Is that in what is almost the geographic center of this country, a trans person was born and raised. This is not a California, blue state, hippie city trend. This is a human, I don't want to say human condition, but I mean, it's a human, I'm groping for words and I'm doing a very bad job of it. But you understand, I hope you understand what I mean. This is a human, you were born in the center of this country. This is no trend. This is not a fad. This is not something fashionable. And the second thing that strikes out to me is that you already knew who you were before any of these gender studies, women's history, et cetera, these things that the right wing has attacked to try to shut down in an attempt to try to make brothers and sisters like you to cease to exist. But you already knew who you were before any of that. These classes didn't make you that way. You already knew who you were. Does any of what I just said in those two big points that really jumped into my ears, does any of that make sense to you? And is that something that you tell people when you tell your story?
It does make sense to me. I really honestly, when I was getting ready to come out as a woman, had a moment when I was still in Iowa And I thought to myself, people don't do this here. And it was because there is this image that this is something that people are doing in the big cities that's radical. And I had internalized that as someone who grew up in the country in rural Iowa. And I'm so blessed to have a very accepting family. But even without my family being a conservative family that was instilling that in me, just culturally, I had absorbed, people don't do this here. I don't get to be, even when I learned what trans was, I really felt like I don't get to be trans here. That's something people do in San Francisco or something. And I had to unlearn that and unpack that.
I just
And
into my head too. I was thinking that's something that people get to do. And I thought, yeah, San Francisco, New York, San Francisco,
right.
maybe Miami, like, you know, yeah.
Right. But at the
Yeah.
same time, now that I'm an adult, I know of at least 3 people who were in high school at the same time, in my high school at the same time that I was. And mind you, my entire high school had 400 kids in it. I know probably 4 of us who transitioned. So things, we're everywhere. And it does make it interesting. If it wasn't tragic, it would be funny that some of these people who are trying to ban all these books and everything think that that's what turns people trans when we had access to none of that. This was like starting high school in 2005, and we had access to none of that. People barely talked about, you know, gay people existed in my small town, and that was very taboo. So, and we still ended up being who we are, right? It's kind of like how Florida right now is also trying to stop schools from and sex ed from teaching anything about menstruation, right? If you don't talk about menstruation, it doesn't mean that menstruation doesn't happen. It is a biological reality, it is a fact of human life. And so is being trans, so is being lesbian, gay, bisexual. This is something that is just a part of human life and always has been. And there's records of cultures, indigenous cultures all over the world going back thousands of years, having cultural recognition of gender variance and gender expansiveness and third genders and all of these different relationships to gender. So this is not a new thing. This is not a fad. What they're trying to do, big T, they, you know, the opponents of progress, are trying to keep people from learning about what they're experiencing, like me when I was growing up, and I knew what was happening, but I didn't have the words. I didn't know anyone else was like me. And they're trying to do the same thing with critical race theory, quote unquote, with even talking about menstruation or sex. Like, these are facts of life, and there are age appropriate ways to talk about them at different ages. But the idea that by just not mentioning them or by banning books that have mention of them, you can erase the actual fact of life, it's just not true, and it's self-defeating.
So why, and this might be, you know, the question that we really couldn't even, you know, the old $64,000 question, but this might be the question that we could never assign a dollar value to. Why are you the target? Why are trans people the target of the day? I obviously will take my conclusions in a very political direction. I think that we are being segmented down to as small a groups as humanly possible because it is easy to divide and conquer. And if we're all fighting each other, we can't watch the billionaire class steal the money right out from under us, or sometimes right out of our own pockets. So why do you think, am I right? Because I'm not right a lot. Or is there something more deep-seated, do you think, this perversion, and I don't use that word lightly, this perversion of Christianity to think that you are somehow ungodly in your own very existence? Why are you the target? why are trans people, I shouldn't say the target, but a target? Why are you a target? Why are you the kind of chic, it's almost sounds like oxymoronic, but why are you the chic target of the time to just send all of this vitriol and hate and why are you the target? Why do you think trans people are the target?
I've thought about this a lot. I feel like there's so many answers on so many levels, but one of
Well,
them,
is it misunderstanding? Is it lack of understanding? Is it fear? Or is it because the more we're tearing at each other's throats, the more we can have our wealth stolen from us? Or is it all of the above?
I think there's an all of the above quality. On the one hand, we are at most, they think, between 1% and 3% of the human community, the human population. So we are a handy scapegoat to have because we're small. They can make us into boogeymen with disinformation campaigns because a lot of people don't know us in real life or don't know that they know us because we may not be out or what have you. So the fact that there aren't enough of us means that they can define us in the public eye. They can make us into something that people are afraid of. Another reason is that post Dobbs decision, conservative Republican movements, radical right-wing movements need another boogeyman to mobilize evangelical voters, their base, to keep showing up. Same-sex marriage has already been figured out. That used to be how they managed to organize and motivate people. It's been abortion forever, but obviously that fight has changed significantly after the Dobbs decision. And we are the fight du jour that gets their base excited, just to be really cynical about it. There's also...
Is that cynical though? Is that really cynical when it seems to have so much damn truth behind it? Can the truth really be that cynical? It can be dark. It can be depressing. It can wear on you. But what's cynical about the truth? You are the target du jour. You are the target of the time. And that is part of the reason. There's 3% of you. 100 people in the room. There's 3 of you. There's 97 of the rest of us. The odds are pretty darn good in our favor. You're an easy small group to make a target. And it probably is all of the above. I tend to focus on the political part of it. I mean, it's all right up here, but I would never, I'd be an idiot to try to say that I can imagine what you've gone through and been through. I'd be an absolute fool to try to say that. But I do think we can see it from the outside that you're just an easy scapegoat. And I don't mean just as a like, oh, just that, but you are an easy scapegoat. You're a target. And it's just simple. The same that folks of color have been targeted. But because now folks of color make up such a large proportion of the American population, now we have to subdivide them. Now it has to be blacks of African descent, and then blacks of Caribbean descent. And then Latinos is way too big of a group. So now we have to subdivide them too into Puerto Ricans and Colombians and Peruvians and Brazilians and Dominicans. And until we're all such small that we can't band together anymore, or that we don't band together anymore, because again, 100 of us in the room and they somehow managed to subdivide us down into 200 different groups. It is a social experiment that has worked, but it's one that's decades, if not centuries in the making. It is stunning. And so what do you think? Why do you think you're the target? What's the purpose of it? You did mention driving the base, but what is I mean, maybe in a quiet moment, maybe when you're not feeling so hopeful, and I mean, we all get stuck in these cycles of thoughts. You know, do you ever have maybe that's a better question to start at maybe a lower or more baser level. Do you ever at a quiet moment at home when you're, bowl of popcorn, sitting watching a movie, just drift off and think to yourself, why me? What did I do other than live my own life to be this target, to be threatened, to have violence on a regular basis threatened against me simply because I exist?
Yeah,
I don't mean woe is me. I think you know what I mean, but it's not, I don't mean like self-pity, but I mean just maybe in a quiet moment, just think that even if you weren't the public person that you were, you'd still be a target simply because you're alive, simply because of who you are.
yeah, there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief involved in just living today in some ways, because it does wear on you day after day to watch this news, to hear this. Even as an advocate, I get updates about in my inbox, from other organizations I'm connected to, about all of these bills that are being passed in various states. I think there's two things that I always return to. One is that we, as trans people, non-binary people, we shape the power structure just by existing. So us just existing is a threat. And that's because so much of our society is built on male supremacy, is built on patriarchy. And interestingly enough, in order to have a hierarchy, you need to be able to segment people like you're talking about. So in order for women to be a second class, you need to be able to tell who's women and who's men and sort them accordingly and place them in their box and make sure that they stay in line. And when trans people exist and we say, my existence proves that these categories are not infinite, that these categories do not contain all of humanity, that in fact, your life has more possibilities than the gender binary and then this patriarchal system has allowed you to imagine. Obviously, that is threatening to a power structure where we still have a vast majority of our government is made up of men. We still have a gender pay gap. We still have a gender work gap in the home in terms of who's taking on more of the chores and the childcare and all of that. So suddenly, I personally feel like so much of the hatred for trans and non-binary people comes from folks who are conservative and have a deep-seated need to keep the gender roles and relationship and power structure intact, because that is their worldview. And we are such a wrench in the gears of that patriarchal project. So that's the sort of like feminist, bigger picture, what I think is going on. But also, one more thing about how it's politically useful in that cynical way. And I mean that, and that our opponents are cynical. I honestly don't think any of these Republican leaders, when you get right down to it, care a whole lot about trans people either way. But I think they see it as a useful tool to get their people engaged and to distract from the fact that they have nothing to offer the country. I mean, this week, a report was released by the UN and hundreds of nations around the world that we are like at climate crisis now. If we don't shift dramatically in the world, the earth may not be inhabitable, and not like, oh, in 2100, but starting in the 2030s, shit is going to get real, to just, say it in a direct way. And yet, thankfully, I say sarcastically, thankfully, all of these conservative radicals are making sure that a few trans kids in schools can feel extra unsafe when they go to the bathroom in between classes. Like, this is so infuriating on a certain level that we're even talking about this. And some people will say it's a distraction, so we don't need to deal with it. We do need to deal with it because it really does impact kids, and their lives are on the line for this cynical political project. So we do need to deal with it, but we also need to just call it what it is, which is that this is not a real issue. This is a solution in search of a problem. Trans kids are not a threat to anyone. And that's why our approach with the PA Coalition for Trans Youth and TAPE is that we want to nip it in the bud and keep talking about the real issues of what we're all facing as a human community by passing these proactive laws that say, no, let's not spend we don't have time for it. Let's not spend the next 5 years arguing over bathrooms when we can just say, this is how every student should be safe and should be accepted in schools and shouldn't have to deal with discrimination. And then let's let our legislators and our activists get back to talking about climate change and poverty and this giant war that's broken out with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, we've got some real challenges as a nation, and the only thing that the other side is offering right now is scapegoating and attacking trans kids.
As we've come to the top of the hour where I normally reset the program, Daye mentioned something very important, and that's the United Nations. I want to follow up with a little piece of facts, a few facts here before I go into the business end of the program that we usually do at the top and bottom of every hour. In my own home school district here where I live in the Saucon Valley, some of the children, students, I should say, I probably shouldn't limit it to students, wanted to I was just found this out today at a meeting that I attended earlier in the day. I did not know about this. I only found this out today. Some students wanted to form a UNICEF club. If you're not familiar with UNICEF, UNICEF is a United Nations program that feeds starving children around the planet. And so these students wanted to form a UNICEF club that would raise money and send the money to UNICEF to feed starving kids on other parts of the planet. The United States, for the longest time, was the largest contributor to UNICEF. It may still be, but we do not contribute at the levels that we used to. And some of the more right-wing factionists of our school board shut that down and made sure that that club was not able to form because they were afraid that the students would be learning too much about, might be influenced by, and did not want them connected with anything having to do with the United Nations. Think about that. For most of my youth and for most of its existence following its formation in the shadows of World War II, the United Nations was an institution probably that still doesn't have the enforcement power that it ever should have. It certainly didn't then, and it doesn't now. It is not a one world government, by the way. It is essentially a planetary parliament, if you will, with each nation having a representative. There is a Security Council, so there is a hierarchy, there is an executive of sorts, and the Secretary General. It is not a world government, but it is in some ways formed like a government. It has agencies, it has departments, it has investigatory power, it has a legislature, it has subcommittees, it has an executive. But UNICEF is focused on feeding starving children. And so some socially conscious students here in the Saucon Valley School District wanted to form a UNICEF club, have fundraisers for UNICEF so the money could go to UNICEF to feed children, and the right-wingers on our school board shut it down because it was related to the United Nations. When I was growing up, the United Nations used to send teams of people to third world nations to do things like monitor elections, to make sure that democracy was functioning, that elections were open and fair, that people were not being intimidated. They kept the peace between warring factions, generally civil warring factions within a nation's borders. They fed people. They drilled water wells. They monitored countries for human rights violations. They provided medical care to third world, quote unquote, third world nations around the planet. The United Nations now spends most of its time monitoring what's happening here in this country. The United Nations has reported that America, the United States, is a receding democracy. It is a failing democracy. They have issued reports about the decline of the standard of living in this country overall, and especially in the old Confederacy. Or I shouldn't even really say the old Confederacy, because the Confederacy still functions and functions quite well. They take more money from the federal government than they give, and yet somehow everyone is still dirt poor. Unless you're in the political structure, then you're doing pretty well. The very deeply red Republican political structure, then you're doing pretty well. The United Nations now monitors the United States elections and has reported that they are not free, open, and fair. We are now among the lowest of the so-called first world nations in press freedom and press safety. It is now more dangerous to be a member of the press in the United States than it is in places like Romania and Kazakhstan. The United Nations tells us this. Toxic chemicals are dumped in neighborhoods of color by heavy industry, completely unregulated, unchecked. People are dying in cancer alleys. The United Nations tells us this, not our own country, not our own government. We are at the top of the first world nations in maternal mortality. The United Nations tells us this. If you're a woman of color, you're even more likely to die in childbirth. We are first among the so-called first world nations in infant mortality. All things that the United Nations now monitors the United States for, the same way it used to monitor the so-called third world countries when I was a kid. When the United States was still deeply, deeply ingrained in a New Deal set of policies, agencies, and idea of government, and tax structure for that matter. We led the globe. The United Nations could look outward. Now it looks here. But thank God the right-wingers on our school board stopped those kids from feeding poor kids and starving kids in far-flung countries. Thank God. Do you see the idiocy of this? Do you see the absolute idiocy of this?
This is like when legal action was taken against the humanitarian activists in Western states that were giving water and food to the migrants. I mean, really.
Or even the Keystone XL, when the indigenous people were fighting the pipeline in the Dakotas. And if the people that brought them food and water were arrested, if not flat out beaten. It's 608, sorry. Just flipped right literally when I was saying that. I really wasn't that silly. It literally flipped right when I said that. 608 Eastern Time, and the Kenny Effect is live with you for the 26th of March, 2023. Check us out all across social media, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah, I remember to do a TikTok promotional video. I did it late, but I did it. It's out there. Instagram, all those places. You can Patreon. You can find us all over the place. George, this past week, even started up a Twitch channel. Talk about shite getting real around here. We started a Twitch channel. So, hey, wow. Talk about not looking like the rest of the audience. That'll be neat to see this face on Twitch. But we're getting there anyway. Check us out where we are across the Facebook universe. That Other Side of Information is our home group Facebook page, or stay right where you are to every group, individual page, everything that has allowed us to be a part of your little corner of Facebook. Thank you. We couldn't do it without you. Quite literally, we couldn't do it without you. Stay where you are, enjoy, or come on over to our home group Facebook page. If you have missed any of the program, if you joined us late, George will work his magic, and this recording, full recording of the program, will be on our YouTube channel starting probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and you can catch up with the entire program and all of our recorded programs, youtube.com/that other side of information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. You can listen to hot101.net on any device that can connect to the internet or can be Bluetooth to, period, end of story. Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app, and of course the TCP Media Group. Daye Pope is our guest for what we think is now the third time, to talk about the rally that's happening on Friday and to talk about the general state of what is nothing less than a culture war, and in too many circumstances, literally a violent war on our trans community. And I mean our trans community, because these are our brothers and sisters and friends and family, fathers, mothers, nieces, daughters, sons, cousins, you name it. These are our community. This is our community. Daye is my sister, even though we are not related in any way, shape, or form. She is a member of the society, and she is my community. And it is our trans community, not a separate set of people shoved over here in the corner. This is our community. So we're talking about the rally happening Friday and the general war on the trans community that is being waged by the right, especially the Christian nationalist right. Daye, I want to read something to you. I'm sure it's something that you have heard before, I should think. It is a pretty well-known poem. I have read it on this program quite a number of times. If you would allow me again, I just want to read it, and I want to hear your response. This is Reverend Niemöller's very, very famous poem from the rise of Nazism in Germany in the 1930s. And it seems to encapsulate not only that time period, but it's frightening in its, even though it is a very past poem, it's frightening in its premonition for what is, in its prescience as to what is happening yet again here in our country. And it goes as follows. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. What do you think of when you hear that?
As many times as we might hear it, it's still chilling, and I think it rings true. I really see one of the biggest scapegoats of the Trump years and continuing to today are immigrants. Trans people, like we've talked about, are the scapegoat du jour. Women's rights and reproductive rights are being scaled back at a horrific rate. And it is taking on different groups that often don't have a lot of political power in this country. Groups that maybe it's easy to demonize, groups that it's easy for people to say exactly what that poem says. Well, I don't sympathize with those types of people. I don't understand what their life is all about. That doesn't seem like it has anything to do with me. But over time, all of our rights are eroded because you're normalizing putting immigrants in camps, putting people in camps, which is a horrific thing. You're normalizing taking away, and not just taking away, but making it a criminal offense, in some states a felony, to make decisions about your own body. And I don't know how that doesn't ring as dystopian and horrific to all of us, even if you aren't someone who can get pregnant, even if you aren't trans, even if you aren't an immigrant, to just see my government shouldn't have the power to do this. My government shouldn't be able to just say my right to my own body is gone now. And that's becoming more and more normalized, I think, by what's happening. And you mentioned people getting broken off, and the poem really mentions people getting broken off by group, broken off by group. And pretty soon, you can't come together as a community anymore because so many of you have been criminalized, so many of you have been disempowered, and it's a really grim political reality right now that I think really is a lot like some of the tactics that authoritarians around the world use and have used in the past.
Reverend Niemöller mentions just 4 groups before he gets to himself: the socialists, the communists, the trade unionists, and the Jews. We could restructure this poem today. We would be talking trans community, LGBTQ community, Blacks, Latinos, women, the poor, the immigrant, the asylum seeker. The list of groups could be easily into the double digits, if not more. And isn't that kind of the point, that we are being segmented? We are being convinced to turn on each other.
Absolutely. I think there's so much being done to try to keep us from seeing our collective struggle, our solidarity with each other. And this is not an original idea, obviously, to me. So many advocates have been saying this, activists, different philosophies, political philosophies have talked about this, but divide and conquer really is effective, and it is what's happening. And women broadly and all trans people are seeing a very similar attack on our bodily autonomy right now that men who are not queer or trans aren't having to deal with. And so this is one of the ways in which we actually have so much in common. Any women, any trans folks are dealing with the same kind of, you don't get to have healthcare decisions about your own body that are intrinsic and that can damage or even lead to your death by us denying this. And yet the other side is trying to pit trans folks, for example, against women and say trans folks are a threat to women. And this is their playbook, right? Like, we have this very natural allyship and need to work together because our right to healthcare is uniquely and similarly being attacked. But instead, the narrative is that there's some battle between our communities, which in daily life usually is actually not the case. Most women's groups and feminist organizations that I know of and work with closely are already trans inclusive, but it's being played up as if there's some grand battle just because of a few, outspoken celebrities on Twitter or what have you. But this is what the radical right wing has to do, because they are not a majority anymore in this country. And so when they are not a majority, they have to find ways to attract attention to the issues where they think they can win more people, to scapegoat communities that aren't well understood, to divide groups that have such a natural similar value and interest. And that is what's happening. And I really want to make that point, because it's no accident that the attacks on abortion care and the Dobbs decision are coming at the same time as this huge attack on trans and queer people's rights. Like, this is a political project in my mind of the radical right to take everything back to before any of these movements won hard-won rights that we always should have had. They want to bring us back to a time before civil rights, before women's rights, before certainly LGBTQ liberation. And we aren't even at the point where we've won all the battles we needed to win, but we've been making some progress in the modern day around some of these issues. And they want to claw us back. They want to keep the power structure the way that it was, with white, straight, cis men on top of who have money. And this, in my mind, is really how they're trying to do it. They're trying to keep us from seeing that we all actually have solidarity with each other. We all actually have a lot of similar values and goals, but we have to be able to see that and work together in order to actually be the majority that we are against this radical conservative minority who are doing everything they can to take us back.
I think I've said on this program, I say it sadly, unfortunately, almost every time that we're on, is that I think one of the great lies of the Reagan era, and it actually began with Margaret Thatcher, was the idea, because it is no ideal and it is no value, but the idea we are not a community, and that we are not a cohesive society, but we are a group of rugged individuals. It's a lie. And I always use the example of that if my house is on fire, my neighbor damn well better worry about it. So how do you make the case to folks? And I know this is going to sound stupid, but bear with me. Even if you take the trans issue out of it, how do you make the case to folks that you're just another part of society, and that what happens to you, or what is being proposed to be done to you, taken from you, does affect them? That it does affect them. When you don't have the same rights as everyone else, it does affect them. How do you make that case to folks? How do you make folks understand that? Or attempt to make folks understand that?
If we don't have the basic right to our own body, then I don't think we can be said to have any rights. Once you've decided that we as the government can force someone to carry a pregnancy to term, even if it was incest, even if they were raped, once you decide that humans don't get to, even with all the medical evidence in the world, that it has a positive effect on them, that we as adults can't make the decisions we need to make about our own bodies, with birth control, with transition related care, with abortion. At that point, none of us can be said to have rights at all. What does it mean to have a right to free speech when I can't even have a right to my own body? What does it mean to have a right to protest or bear arms if I can't even decide whether or not I have to bear a child or not? And this is why these attacks that seem like they only impact some people in the community impact all of us, because if you turn a blind eye to that, or if you say, yeah, I agree with that abortion ban, whatever that may be, what you're saying is, yes, I consent that the government has carte blanche to control my body too, because that's really what's happening. When you roll back rights for one group, you set the stage to roll them back for anyone. You say, yes, that's a legitimate use of the government's power, is to tell me, ironically, because conservatives often have talked about wanting to keep government small and all of that, but we've long since seen that that is not the reality when they actually govern. They're trying to legislate and enforce with police violence and the carceral state. They're trying to control individually our bodies, our basic human ability to decide what's going to happen to our body. And I think if people aren't afraid when they think about that, then I don't know what else to say, because I feel like that is the scariest thing that you can hear, is that the government tomorrow can just decide that that medication that you're taking or that decision you're making about whether or not you're going to expand your family is theirs to make and isn't yours to make. And that's why it affects all of us, because like the poem, today it's trans folks, and we are going to fight and we are going to win, because this does matter more to us than it matters to our opposition, because this is our lives. This is life or death for us, and I believe that we will win. But even if we didn't, they will not stop there. They will go on to the next group that they think that they can pick off to win votes and to distract from the fact that they have no plan to deal with climate change or the war in Ukraine or any of these other pressing issues. But it gets down to, in my mind, if we don't have a right to our own body, can we really be said to be free people?
And for as many activists as I have had on this program, that I've been blessed to have on this program, that they've been blessed to share their time with me, I've asked them all the same question. And I tend to answer my own question because a couple of people I've really taken by surprise by it, and they don't really know where the hell I'm going with it. And the question is, and the first time I thought of it was when I was hosting a memorial for George Floyd after he was murdered. And I think it was Senator Haywood that we were speaking to. And we were talking about civil rights and racial equality. And I said to him, what the hell do Black people want anyway? And he really sat up in his chair and his eyes darted open. And I said, let me answer that for you, Senator. Nothing. You don't want anything different than anyone else has. You just want the same. Black folk care about the same thing that everybody cares about. They'd like to have a safe home, a safe neighborhood, good schools, a decent job that they can take care of themselves. They don't want free stuff. They don't want to sit around and do nothing all day. They want to be safe, legal contributors to society the same way that everybody else does. So let me ask you, or at least that's sure as hell is my experience, as do Latinos, as do asylum seekers, as do women, as do seniors, as do the LGBTQ community. So what do trans people want, Daye? What do they want?
We just want to be able to live our lives.
You don't want anything special or different than anybody else, do you? You don't want free stuff. You don't want, millions of free dollars poured in your pocket. You just want to be left alone. Be a contributing part of society and be an accepted part of society and live your life. It would seem to me, I always find that to be the irony of that that people of color have to, that asylum seekers and their advocates, Latinos and women, and dear God, in 2023, that women, 56% of the population has to stand up and say, we just want the same thing everybody else has. Nothing special, nothing free, nothing above and beyond, just the same. It seems to me that our trans community is simply asking for the same thing. We just want to be treated the same as everybody else.
Yes.
Or am I way off?
We want legislators to deal with climate change instead of trying to attack us. I mean, but really, like, we're in the society too. We're worried about, making rent this month. We're worried about the same things. We're trying to Google like what's happening with banks right now. I don't even understand. Like, we're just people, and we want our leaders to deal with the real issues that are impacting all of our lives. And sometimes it just makes it hard to even understand people and what's happening in this country, to say like, okay, so the earth might not be inhabitable in a couple of decades, but we're still fighting over whether I get to exist, right? Like, we want to just be, like you said, treated like anyone else. We want to be able to contribute to society. We are contributing to society. We're parts of people's communities, neighborhoods, families, churches, workplaces. And at the same time, nothing is more ridiculous, even to us, than the fact that we are on the menu so much right now, when the world has so many real and pressing problems going on that don't have anything to do with the fact that I take safe medication from my doctor every month in the form of hormone replacement therapy. Like, it just doesn't matter compared to all of these really important things. And even we are like, why is this an issue right now?
6:30 Eastern Daylight Time, the Kennedy Effect live for the 26th of March, 2023. Wherever you are on Facebook, That Other Side of Information is our home group Facebook page. If you tuned in after we began and missed any of the program, check out the YouTube channel, also called That Other Side of Information. Later in the week, after George works his video magic and takes the video part of the program, turns it into a YouTube video, and posts it over on our YouTube channel. The Villain's View comes up following us on hot101.net from 9 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific. Check us out all across social media. Please continue to share the program to friends, family, groups, pages, etc., etc., etc. That's how we grow. Give us a like, give us a subscribe on all of the different social medias that we are a part of. The cheat sheet is right behind me. Patreon, TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. We hope that you will find us and stay up on what we are doing. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. You can listen to us on any internet connected device, and you can listen through any device that you can Bluetooth to: Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app, and the TCP Media Group. Daye Pope continues as our guest. I don't know how late you're staying. Just let me know when I should shut up and let you go. But I want to ask you, as a reality check for folks, something that I think might be a real reality check for folks. What are some of the things that we would consider normal in society that trans people cannot do? For instance, in Pennsylvania, you can be fired for being trans for no particular reason whatsoever. Not because you're a poor job performance or anything else. Just because the corporation, the business, the boss simply doesn't like the fact that you're a member of the trans community. You can be fired for that. At least in Pennsylvania. That is not that way across the country, but it is in Pennsylvania. What things would most of society think you could do? Adopt children, teach in school. Educate me. Tell me what that we would think you could do that you can't.
In Pennsylvania, there aren't statewide protections that ensure, like you said, that we can't be fired just for being who we are. There aren't protections against being turned away at a business if we're just trying to have dinner at a restaurant and we could be turned away. In Pennsylvania, there aren't protections for using the bathrooms when we're just out at a store and we need to use the restroom. In Pennsylvania, there aren't protections that make sure that loving married couples with all of their ducks in a row to be able to take in a child can actually adopt. It's illegal to be discriminated against as a queer trans couple. Conversion therapy is still legal in the state of Pennsylvania. So charlatans can offer to cure you of being something that you cannot be cured of. And this type of therapy has been proven to be a psychological torture that increases mental health and suicide risk for people who are exposed to it. But that's not banned, even for minors in the state of Pennsylvania. Many times, trans folks, queer folks might go into a place of worship and be turned away, could be walking into a barber or a hairstylist or a doctor's office and be harassed for being who we are. Rates of violence against our community are much higher than the average in the broader society. So on lots of levels, especially trans folks of color, but really LGBTQ folks across the spectrum, have to deal with discrimination, harassment, and violence routinely in multiple areas of our lives. And we also manage to thrive. There are also some amazing community members who are affirming and who are loving and who are accepting, but we can't walk into just any establishment and expect that that is naturally how we are going to be treated. So we are so grateful for the many, many people, especially across PA, that I know who are really accepting and loving, because there are so many of them around this state. And it's oftentimes a gamble when we're going somewhere new, especially if folks are visually gender nonconforming, or if they're visually in a same-sex partnership and they walk into an establishment or they walk down the street. There's no telling what's going to happen. There's still so much discrimination and violence that you think we should be past by now.
Where would you say we are in your lifetime, when you've, from the time that you came to grips with who you are? Is this the low point? Is this the worst that it's ever been in your treatment, in the way that you've been targeted, the depth to which your community has been targeted? Is this the low point, or is it just another cycle, another hurdle? It seems to me, again, absolutely looking from the outside in, for me to say that I know how you feel would be foolish and stupid, because I don't. I can only hope to learn about it and to stand by you, as I always will, and hope to continue to learn more and more along the way. But are we at a low point now? Are we at the, perhaps it would seem to me we're at the lowest point it's been probably since Stonewall. So what do you see? What is your thought about where the country is?
That's a good question. I don't think we're at a low point. I have met trans elders in their 70s or 80s who talk about having to try to find their way in a world in which not just most people, no one around them knew the term transgender. They had to fight so hard to find any doctors who would give them cold medicine when they were sick, let alone help them transition. There wasn't anywhere except maybe a couple of radical, underground type businesses that would hire folks back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And they talk about what they had to go through to get their basic needs met. And I think that was a low point, before there were any resources, before there was any information. And some people are still living in communities where that's true. Some members of the community, especially trans women of color, are being forced to do survival sex work and can't access basic needs, including housing and food. And we need to always talk about that and center them. And we are in a place where I believe that things were getting better in this country for trans people over the last 20 years of advocacy and advocates standing up and everyday people coming out and culture shifting with different types of characters on TV and in books. And we were in this moment of ascendance and we still had a long way to go. But then we became visible enough to be a target. And then the conservative radical movements made us their latest target. And so now I don't think things are worse than they used to be. But now something that used to be unheard of and then started to be heard of in a positive way is now just one more of the issues that is deeply polarizing in our country. So I feel like back in the day, the 60s, the majority of people were probably not accepting, didn't know anything about trans folks. Now, I genuinely feel like we are just bitterly divided about, as a country, about trans people's existence and whether we should have the rights and be able to live our lives. And that's a really frightening place to be. But this backlash that we're seeing from the radical conservatives is coming because we've been successful at winning certain protections here and there, at winning over many more people to become allies and to stand with us. So I am still really hopeful. I still think that we are headed in a certain direction of greater gender possibilities and liberation in this country. But we are in the period of time that is the reaction, that is the backlash, where there's still a certain group of people who want to take advantage of the fact that many people still don't understand who trans people are. And so I think if we look down, 10 years down the road, if we manage to do what we need to on climate, you'll see that trans people are in a better place. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to continue to be this incredible tug of war. And I also really feel like this is why protecting trans youth is our main focus, is because these young people don't have a decade for things to get better. They need them to get better sooner than that, because they are being attacked, they're being bullied, their mental health is struggling, they're struggling. And so even when I say I'm hopeful for the long term, like, we can't afford to just wait until society, magically improves for these young people and to just plug it again. That's why we're having this rally for school equality on the state capitol steps in Harrisburg this upcoming Friday, March 31st at 1 p.m. Because when you think about being a young person, like, 4 years is your entire high school career. So if we're battling over this, or if these laws stay in effect for 4 years, that does lasting damage to you. Even if you, God forbid, aren't one of the young people who it's so bad that you take your own life, we know that what happens to young people impacts them for the rest of their life. Trauma is something that is carried with us into our adulthood. And so we're trying to say, with this rally and with everything we're doing, let's stop traumatizing these kids. Let's stop having these adult fights over these young people who are just going to school to learn and to hang out with their friends and to go to lunch. And they should never have had to deal with all of this. so that we don't lose any more young people, and so that we don't defer their ability to just be kids and to be happy and to be accepted when they're in these formative years.
Anyone who follows you, especially on, I guess I'm a little older and I tend to do most of my social media still at Facebook, but if anybody who follows you there knows that you have a very vigorous social media presence. And on Facebook, I consistently see these pictures of you and your partner in all these far-flung places and these gorgeous pictures and all these wonderful places. And is there any way to explain to folks just how much it means to have a partner that's supportive?
Yeah, I think it makes all the difference, probably for any of us, if we've got a supportive community around us, if we have a supportive partner. Both my partner and I are trans, which is also another level of affirmation and beauty, because we can just so deeply understand each other's journeys and what each other goes through on a day-to-day basis. And I'm really grateful for him, and I'm really grateful to you for mentioning that. We don't really go that many places. We're mostly going to small towns in PA and getting food on patios.
I don't know. I see a lot of pictures.
Yes, but this is the other piece. I was talking to a mother of a young trans kid the other day, and she was just beside herself because people had been so cruel to her, and she'd been seeing all this news, and she was reading all the Facebook comments, which is always reading the comments online, dangerous.
Going down the rabbit hole.
Right. But I so understood, because this is what she's having to deal with day in and day out, just to try to protect her kid. And she kind of asked me, like, how do you just keep doing this? Because this is so hard right now. And I really said, this is the flip side of trying to do any kind of work to change things and to make them better, is you need to be able to have that time when you're just enjoying existing and being a human and connecting with people and cooking your favorite meal and having a bubble bath, whatever it is, connecting with people that share your values. You need to be able to step away sometimes. And I think that's what my partner and I do, and what I hope everyone can do, partnered or not, with the people that matter to you, is you cannot read the Twitter feed all day. You cannot get these things in your inbox about all these terrible laws. You cannot be reading every article. We should stay informed, and you should make a difference and fight, but you also need to take care of yourself. And so what I try to do is I try to enjoy life along the way and not just only ever think about this stuff. But I also try to tell people, and I had this conversation with this mother, I say, at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, what is useful? It's useful to plan a rally. It's useful to draft a bill. It's useful to join a local club of people that have similar values who can do something. It's useful to knock a door. At a certain point, it's not useful to stew in your own dread that this current political moment can produce. Like, some of that you might need. So you need to let yourself feel what you feel. But at a certain point, you have to step back and be like, okay, now I'm done with all the news. Now I'm done with the Twitter feed, whatever, my TikTok scroll, and I'm going to just decide to do something in the real world that can actually move the needle, because that feels empowering to me in a way that continuing to just think about how bad things are isn't.
Let me ask you then an extension maybe of that question. You mentioned earlier on, when I asked about your own personal story, you said you had a very accepting and supporting family. Is there any way to really quantify how important that was. Because I'm sure in the work that you do, and I don't think this is a stretch for most people to think or to imagine, a parent saying, "You're what? Get out of this house." So how is there any way to quantify how important that was to you, how much that meant, how much that kept you, well, hell, I mean, let's just be honest about it. You're alive and you're talking to me. So how much that meant to you to have a family stand with you instead of any of the other myriad of ways that a family can and does at times handle these things.
Yeah, my family has been my rock at a lot of times when there was a lot of bullying, there was a lot of harassment, and my peers weren't accepting. And there have been studies about this, that people who come out as LGBTQ, whose families embrace them, have such a better chance of going on to having happy, healthy, long lives than folks whose families reject them. Like, it's like night and day. And I'm so lucky because I honestly don't know where I would have been if my family hadn't accepted me or if I would still be here. And I hear that from a lot of other people. And I also work with people and young people who don't have that support, and how traumatic and damaging that is to them. And that's why when I see how many parents are actually stepping up, not only to accept their children, but to fight back against these anti-trans laws that are targeting their kids, those are the real mama bears, papa bears, whatever. Those parents are fierce, and they might not always feel fierce because they're fighting a really intense battle right now. But that's really the core of the PA Coalition for Trans Youth too, are parents that are saying, I didn't really understand this stuff until my kid came out to me, and then I was forced to learn because I just want to protect them. And they have become some of the fiercest advocates. And I see that in my own family. My mom's a library director still in rural Iowa. And when I came out and everything, she's made sure that her library represents a diverse array of, LGBTQ books that now in some districts they're trying to get banned, but she really saw the value in that. And she made sure that her library in a town of 1,100 in Iowa has a bunch of trans and queer and LGBTQ narratives, so that other young people who are growing up in that community, like I did back then, and couldn't find my story, that they actually have their story. And that's beautiful to the next generation, but that's also so meaningful to me when she does something like that, because it's that extra step of supporting me and supporting the people in your life that are trans. And we need that right now, because frankly, like I said, I've worked on progressive political campaigns, I've worked in different spaces, and I have been disappointed by how few of those folks who are not LGBTQ themselves have posted anything, said anything, joined a protest, taken part in anything having to do with protecting trans lives right now. And I don't know if people feel like they don't understand enough about the issues to take part, or what is behind that. But I think that's really dangerous and disappointing. If you believe in progressive values, if you believe in human rights at all, even if you don't completely understand all the different identities or pronouns or whatever, we need you in this fight. You can't sit back right now, because like we said, we're maybe 3% of the population. At the end of the day, we need our allies if we're going to be able to live our lives and to protect our rights. And so if you're out there and you're listening and you've been hesitant because you're not sure you know enough, or you're busy or whatever, we need you. Come to the rally on Friday in Harrisburg, or get involved with your local groups that are doing this work, because it means so much.
Will someone be live streaming the rally for folks who can't get to Harrisburg, or for our listeners who are literally around the globe who might want to pay attention to what it is that's going. Because again, this is again, we're a society, we're a country, we're a planet. Your rally is happening in Harrisburg, but we have listeners all over the planet. And what you're doing in Harrisburg does speak to what people in other states, communities, counties, countries can do to stand up for folks in their community. So do you happen, are you set up for it to be live streamed? Will people be able to tune in and even passively take part and see how the rally is going and things of that nature?
Yes, definitely. We will be streaming live from the PA Coalition for Trans Youth Facebook page, and we'll be sharing out links on our social media and our networks beforehand too of where the live stream link will be, because we do know some people want to tune in but can't make it. And some people have reached out to us too who are in different states or different countries to ask how they can be supportive. And the organization I work with, Take, is always excited about donations, takebhm.org. But also what I always say to folks is the best way that you can get involved is to get involved in the fight in your own backyard, because trust, no matter where you are in the country, there is something at the state level, there's something at your local level that you can be involved in on this issue, because we are, like we've said, the scapegoat du jour. And so there's so many attacks in so many places that even if you're listening in and you're not in Pennsylvania, get involved with your local group. And one of the best ways to find that out is equalityfederation.org. It's a group of LGBTQ organizations around the country. You can usually find your statewide advocacy group listed on their website. And if you can't, asking your friends, finding through social media, there's always going to be something. But we need our allies to step up. That's just where we're at.
How much of your work has grown? Again, if grown is the right word, I hope that it is, or developed, or into dealing not just with maybe the better way to ask and my brain is racing about the right way to ask and to say the right question. I would think that as this has developed, a holistic approach has developed as well. How much of the work that you do is no longer just dealing with the trans folks or the trans youth itself, but the family now? I mean, do you talk to parents? Do you have parents that come up to you and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. And not because they're bad people or mean or evil or whatever it might be, just because they literally just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Most of our work is with families, honestly, at this point. And so much of our coalition are just people that are close to trans youth by, being their parent, being their family member, being a trans elder that's mentoring them. Because right now, and this is part of the strategy too, trans minors can't vote, obviously. They don't have institutional power in this country, and they're also just kids. They shouldn't have to fight these battles. They shouldn't have to be out here at the front lines. So the PA Coalition for Trans Youth and Take, we try to be those people still deeply connected to them so that we're not speaking for them, but we try to be those people who are fighting the battle at the front lines for them, because they should still get to be kids. And right now, they're not really able to be kids, but so many of the people in our coalition, so many of the folks that are reaching out to me about the event on Friday are parents themselves of trans youth. And it's almost like there's more of you than you think there are. They're coming out of the woodwork to say, thank you for having this rally. We're going to be there, to ask me questions about the event. And many of them are actually helping plan the event. We'll have a speaker, at least one, who is speaking, and many more who are coming, but who aren't comfortable speaking because they don't want to attract too much attention to what their child's going through, but they'll be there to support. And I think they're heroes for their kids, because they really are deciding to face the brunt of all these horrific attacks because it's the right thing to do, and because it will mean that their kid has that much more of a chance of growing up to be happy and healthy and surviving. And they know it, and they're defending them fiercely, but they're also really scared and really exhausted by how horrifically these states are attacking them. And even in some states like Florida, I mean, this is just, I can't believe this even. This has shocked me that they're trying to make it so that it's considered child abuse to accept your trans kid, and that they actually want Child Protective Services to take these kids away and force them to detransition. That is from a horror story. And the organization I work with, TAPE, does a lot of work, is based in Alabama. And Alabama has passed one of these felony trans healthcare bans for youth. And we see in the states where these attacks happen, families are being forced out of the state. I know of many families in these states where this is happening that are trying to put together the funds and the plan to move because they're basically living under the terror of these anti-trans bills right now. And so this isn't just about the trans kids, it's about these families, it's about these parents, and it's also about whether or not there's a mass migration of people in our own country who need refuge in one state from another state, which is kind of a horrifying state of affairs, I think. My home state, this is very heavy on my heart, this past week just passed some of these anti-trans laws, including healthcare ban and a bathroom bill. And Minnesota, thank you, Minnesota, truly, thank you so much, passed a trans refuge bill. That means that Iowa youth who go to Minnesota will not be criminalized or reported or any of that for getting care. And it reaffirms that they can get care in Minnesota.
There's a reason why in these Confederate states, and let's just be blunt about it, that's what they still are. The Confederacy is alive and well, and in many ways it's winning. But it's alive and well and functional. There's a reason why in Mississippi, if you make anything over $11,000 a year, you're ineligible for Medicaid because you make too much money. Because rich people don't want to pay taxes, period. Because these Southern Confederate states can take $2 for every dollar, take $2 back for every dollar they send to Washington. And as we've seen in Mississippi especially, a lot of these Republican officials are taking those monies and sticking them in their pockets. So it only makes sense that states like this would be forcing people to move. If you don't think Mississippi wouldn't mind if the entire Black population up and moved, I think you'd be foolish. If you didn't think Missouri would be happy that the entire Black population would get up and move, I think you'd be foolish. So this is a money thing as much as anything else. They don't want trans youth to access state services for anything, for unemployment or medical or anything. But why does Ron DeSantis illegally, by the way, against international fugitive laws, by the way, and asylum laws, why does he use taxpayer money to put Latino asylum seekers on planes and send them to New York City? Because he doesn't want to pay for them. Because the flight is cheaper. And it's a way to keep taxes low on rich people than to have them become residents and possibly access state services. This doesn't surprise me in the least. This is about money. And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. If it wasn't trans kids, it would be Black kids or Latino kids or AAPI kids, anything other than white and male kids. Talk to me about Randall, our dearest, most loyal listener caller. He's going to start bugging me about the phone line pretty soon. I'm surprised he hasn't yet, to be honest. Trans children's greatest school enemy. This is a quote from the Facebook chat, which has been very quiet, by the way, tonight, folks. I don't know what's wrong with you all. Maybe you enjoyed the spring day and you're all worn out. Trans children's greatest school enemy is the Koch-financed group Moms for Liberty. Daye, tell me about Moms for Liberty. Or at least what you know of them or how you've crossed paths with them. And I suspect we'll continue to do so.
Moms for Liberty, much like the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they all have very pithy names, right, about liberty and freedom. But these are groups that are well-funded, that are astroturfing the fight against trans kids right now. For folks who might not know, they're drumming up the appearance of grassroots energy, wanting to keep trans kids out of schools, but they're using millions of dollars to do it. So it's not really an organic thing that's bubbling up from your neighbors and your communities without this intense level of resourcing from these extreme right-wing groups like Moms for Liberty, Alliance Defending Freedom. But they're groups that are very invested in turning our schools into a culture war hotbed and taking over local school boards and recruiting conservative parents and making this seem like a legitimate issue that parents are concerned about instead of something that they're ginning up with their consultants and their talking points and all of their very official funds. So I actually just heard from a parent earlier today, who is going to be at the rally, who's getting involved because the Moms for Liberty are in their school district now trying to ban trans kids, and this parent has a trans kid. And so this is very present in Pennsylvania. We very much are a purple state that is a target of these extreme right-wing groups. They are funneling money and resources into our state. And we're in this battle right now between the genuine people who want the state to go the right way and between these hate group funded extremists who want us to go the way of Alabama, Florida, Texas. And we're trying to have us go the way of Pennsylvania and the way of our neighbors like New Jersey, New York, states that have already affirmed by law, state law, that trans kids get to be accepted in school. And this isn't flaring up in the same way in those states because they've already handled this issue. But yeah, this is one of the many sort of fake right-wing grassroots groups that are actually AstroTurf outside funding, trying to give a sheen of legitimacy to these attacks.
Randall's comment only partially, folks, covers what Moms for Liberty is. Daye is right. Republicans are really good at naming these pieces of legislation and their groups and so on, these wonderfully oxymoronic names. Moms for Liberty is not for anyone's liberty other than their own, or their definition of it, not what you consider it to be, not what the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. We fought a war of independence over, what we won 2 world wars over. Nothing of the sort, only what they define liberty to be. So what do the Moms for Liberty define liberty to be? Well, their money is not just Koch money. There is some, not just Koch money. They also receive an awful lot of money from the DeVos family and from other families and business interests involved in the for-profit education industry. The DeVos family became billionaires off the taxpayers' backs in Michigan because when Republicans took over the governorship and the legislature, they privatized so much education, and these companies were right there to pick up the pieces. They became billionaires through it. Your tax dollars. Moms and the people that fund them want the same thing. We've talked on this program an awful lot about the old quote unquote joke that Republicans want to return us to the 50s. They do. The 1850s. A pre-Civil War society. The Confederacy. And the Confederacy, by the way, was largely, if you really want to look at it, fascistic in its operation. A very small cabal of rich white males who determined everything from where kids went to school to where people worked, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Moms want liberty, their liberty, not yours, not anyone else's who doesn't look like them, not anyone else's who doesn't quote unquote worship like them, because they don't worship anything. They just tell you they do. And their money comes from for-profit education. They want to destroy public education. They want to return education to a system before government got involved in it and spread it to the masses the way Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson intended. And they want to return it to a level and to a condition where if you can buy it, you can have it. And if you can't, you don't get it. Period. This establishes a permanent upper class and the rest of us nothing but worker drones. Daye's used the word dystopian quite a few times. This is dystopian. Only the billionaire class can be educated. The rest of us become the medieval European landed gentry. We become the sharecroppers. We become the ones who tend the fields, give all the food to the landed gentry while we starve, even though we're the farmers. That's it. Moms for Liberty don't want liberty for anyone other than themselves and the billionaires that own them. Period. How do you destroy something like public education? You defund it, which Republicans have done nothing but for 50 years now, because that actually really started with Nixon. Reagan put it in hyperdrive, but we defunded public education. And the other way you destroy it is from within. You elect, or you get elected, I should say. And again, if you think election manipulation stops at the presidential race, that's a foolish thought. Think about when you go vote for president. How many other elections are on that ballot? How many other offices are you voting for? You elect your school board. When you manipulate elections, you manipulate school board elections. The Koch brothers spend money on school board elections, for God's sake. They do. Big textbook companies spend money on school board elections because they want their books to be the one that your school district buys. But these for-profit education industry interests, they want these radical right-wing Christian nationalists on your school board because these folks, generally speaking, don't believe in public education. They don't just not believe in the way that your district is running. They don't believe your district should exist. They don't believe that public education should exist. And one of the ways to destroy public education is to undermine your confidence in it. Those teachers aren't qualified. They're just union members. They want a free lunch. Those kids don't need to eat breakfast and lunch in school. Your little Johnny and your little Jane doesn't want to sit next to Daye. She's trans. We don't want that. News flash. Daye Pope is a human being. And it's nothing more complicated than that. So how do we destroy public education from within? You defund it, and you undermine the public's confidence in it. And that's where our trans community becomes a target. You don't want little Johnny and little Jane sitting next to a trans child. I got news, folks. That trans child has a hell of a lot more on their mind than who the hell's sitting next to them. They probably got a hell of a lot more on their mind than what 2 and 2 is. It's probably more about, am I going to get the shit beaten out of me in between classes? Is anyone going to sit next to me at lunch? Can I even eat lunch before someone comes and flips it over in front of me? How do I tell mom and dad? Can I go to the guidance counselor? Will they even understand? Do they even care? These are profit-driven, billionaire-driven. This is not the one radical local baker who doesn't want to make a cake for a gay couple. This is a sustained, billionaire-funded nationwide effort to do nothing short of end public education in this country. End it. Not change it. End it. End it. Randall mentions in the comments section, Daye, I would imagine that you might be attending this. I don't know that you are, but you might be. I would like to. I simply don't know if I can quite yet. In Philadelphia. And I don't want to confuse people with the two events. Please remember, Daye's event is coming up this Friday, but I do want to mention this because we mentioned Moms for Liberty. Philadelphia, at the end of June, the 29th to July 2nd, Moms for Liberty is having a convention. And there has been a tremendous amount of online chat and organizing between progressive groups about being there for it. What are your thoughts generally about doing that? Do we need to push back, not just stand up for ourselves, but push back against these types of groups?
I definitely think so. I'm not personally one of the leaders of that effort, but I know a lot of groups and some of the advocates that I work with are working on actually trying to pressure the center that's hosting it to deny them the ability to be there because of the hate speech and the other kind of hateful actions that they've taken, and try to say, you know, you as this convention center get to decide, you know, as a private business, whether you're going to allow them to have their convention here. And so there's a lot of pressure even right then to keep them from being able to host it at one of these hotels, I believe it is, in Philly. And then there is a lot of talk about protesting it and showing up to make sure that our freedom of speech is heard, that this is not something that the people of Philly agree with, and not something that we want to take root here in Pennsylvania, because we believe in public education. We believe in schools that are free of discrimination. I'm so glad you brought up that this is a part of a bigger effort to defund and to get rid of public education, because a lot of people are not aware of that. But this is absolutely part of the same: attacking masks in schools, attacking critical race theory, attacking trans kids, and, you know, gender ideology, quote unquote, in schools, is all part of a very specific and, again, well-funded effort to attack public schools. And I just want to say one side thing. There is a problem in the radical conservative right because they know that younger generations are not about anything that they're selling. Gen Z, more people in Gen Z so far that we know of are openly identifying as queer or trans than any other generation before, because again, they've had access to the information, not because of the trend. And young people in general care a lot about social justice in this country. If you poll Gen Z's attitudes about anything, it's more progressive than every other generation that they poll. And the right knows this, and they want to disrupt and dismantle higher education, public education. They want to ban books. They want to do whatever they can to take away the access to the information that's helping young people realize that they want a different world. And it's very much in their interest, because when enough young people get to be voting age, they're going to have a problem. They're already having a problem because their narrow white supremacist 1850s, as you said, worldview is not that popular, it turns out. And so they're doing everything in their power to try to take away any kind of information and education that helps people form their political identities and their values and their opinions, because they know that unless they keep people ignorant, frankly, people are not going to continue to vote for them.
Why did the Reagan administration attack civics education? Because it's really hard to complain about your government when you have no idea how it works. Very, very simple idea. I wanted to ask you about oh crap, I had it up in front of me, then I lost it. There is a Nebraska state legislator, state senator, Michaela Cavanaugh, Democrat representing the Omaha area. Republicans in the Nebraska legislature proposed an anti-trans bill. Senator Kavanaugh stood up and said, now you've gone too far, because now you've attacked my family. And I looked at the legislative calendar, and I'm paraphrasing the senator very terribly here, but I'm essentially, I am going to stand here and filibuster every single bill. This session will accomplish nothing, because now you've gone too far. And when asked by her Republican colleagues, does that mean you'll filibuster even the bills you believe in? She said, absolutely. I am shutting this place down, because now you've gone too far. Because you're fascists. This is beyond opinion. This is beyond policy. This is fascism. And I'm stopping it. And I am going to burn this place down. And she started naming her fellow senators by name, which is generally beyond the decorum of a legislative session across the country. We rarely, if ever, see it. We don't see it enough. My question to you is this how legislators in the states and territories, as well as in DC, need to start fighting back?
Absolutely. I'm so struck by this example from Nebraska because it is so rare, but that is what allyship is saying, I am going to use everything in my power, and I am going to stand between these people that want to hurt these kids and the kids. I'm going to protect these kids. And we don't see it enough from any of these legislators. We don't see it enough from even the people that are supposed to be, again, our allies, our progressive folks. And that's a call in, not a call out. I want everybody to step up and help more. And I don't think we're seeing enough of it. But what's happening in Nebraska is the right amount of seeing this as the crisis that it is. Because it's easy. And I even talked about the bigger fish that we have to fry with climate change and everything else. But really, when these bills pass, kids die. Like, families get pushed out of states. Mental health crumbles for these young people. Bullying is given a stamp of approval by state governments. This is a crisis that's happening in our schools. And filibustering in the Nebraska legislature is actually taking it seriously as the crisis that it is, and is saying, I'm not going to let it happen. And it's one of the rare bright spots lately, because in a lot of these states, there hasn't been the numbers, the power, but there also hasn't been the will to stop this from happening. And I do want to say there are a lot of amazing legislators in Iowa who were fighting back and speaking out, but they were overruled. In all these other states, there are champions that have been fighting all of this that's happening, but we need more legislators and more people in general keeping them from acting like this is a normal thing that they're doing and treating it like the crisis that it is.
Is there room inside the pushback on this to use what I consider to be the accurate descriptions of what is actually happening here? I know that some folks think that the words are, attention seeking and over the top and hyperbolic and everything else. This is dystopian. This is science fiction writing. It's fascistic, period. I don't consider this to be hyperbole or just attention seeking. It is what it is. When we talk about, again, Reverend Niemöller's poem, among the victims of the Holocaust were the we didn't call them that then, but the LGBTQ community. Thousands and thousands of gay and queer folk, gypsies, the mentally and physically disabled, anyone who wasn't perfect, or at least perfect in the Aryan eyes. That's pretty much what we're looking at here. I'm sure somebody has, probably in a quiet moment in a dark corner in a dark legislative hall. No one has publicly called for you all to be rounded up into a camp yet, but it isn't too damn far away from it. Because some folks have talked about how you really simply shouldn't exist. They haven't exactly said how they're going to get there, but they've kind of openly advocated that you really shouldn't exist. I mean, this is dystopian. It's fascistic. It's totalitarian. It sounds like something out of a bad science fiction novel, but yet here we are. I mean, is there any way are these the kind of terms, and this is the kind of terminology and the kind of emphasis and passion and urgency that we need to be using in these discussions? Or is it unhelpful? What do you think of it?
I think there's a danger of underselling where we're at in this country right now, more than there's a danger of overstating it. Because the Dobbs decision, the attacks on trans rights, keeping immigrant families in camps, this is not normal. And we have to keep saying it, because it is the classic metaphor of the frog boiling in the pot so slowly that you don't realize that you're boiling. People can get inured and used to the new normal and forget that this is actually not normal. I mean, a leading candidate for president of the United States on the Republican side incited a coup attempt, insurrection, and the same people who want to reinstall him in power are the people who are attacking trans kids and attacking abortion rights and attacking immigrants and attacking people of color. I mean, this is the 11th hour. We are at the crossroads. Choose your metaphor. If we get someone in the White House, especially Donald Trump, but DeSantis as well, in
What Tom
2024,
Hartman refers to as a more functional fascist. DeSantis, Rick Scott, Josh Hawley, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, like a more functional fascist. There's someone who's better at it.
yeah, we are not out of the woods yet by any means. We barely escaped what I believe would have been utter catastrophe for our democracy if Donald Trump was reelected. But we're not out of the woods yet, because if Donald Trump is reinstalled, and I say that on purpose, or if DeSantis wins the presidency, then I could actually see nationwide abortion being banned. I could see voting restrictions going into effect that we haven't seen since, before Reconstruction. And I could see trans people being outlawed outright under either of those people. And this
I
is
could
not
see you and your
normal.
partner unfolding an old-fashioned paper map on a table and saying, well, sweetie, you want to go north or do you want to go south?
Yes.
I don't say that as a joke, Day. Swear to God, I don't.
No, these are conversations.
Where do you want to go? What do you like better, honey? Snow in Canada or tropics in Mexico? Pick, because I don't think we got a choice.
These are conversations that we're having, and that trans people are having, and that parents of trans kids are having. Like, what are we going to do? And it's not normal. And that's why we need people to see this as the crisis that it is, because the stakes have always been high, depending on who you are in this country. But this isn't like a debate about the intricacies of tax policy, and whether we want it to be this percent or cut off at this, whatever. Like, this is about whether we have a functioning democracy at all or not, and whether certain groups of our population are going to be able to continue to live or not. Because
I go back to what we were talking about earlier about the history of this country as it relates to the United Nations. When we would watch the evening news, and my father was a habitual watcher of the evening news, and we would see that the United Nations has sent peacekeeping troops to fill in the blank country, or that warring clans on the African continent were slaughtering each other, and that there was this mass migration of people who were simply trying to avoid the fighting. We've seen, I think that the number is an upward of 2 million Ukrainians flee Ukraine, with more than 1 million of them just in Poland alone. By the way, the United States has taken, I think, not even 10,000, if I'm not mistaken. What a bastion of freedom we are. But I would stand to be corrected if anyone knows that I'm incorrect in that number. I don't believe that I am, but if I am, please feel free to correct me. I want to get it right if I'm wrong. I know that Poland has taken, I think, in the neighborhood of 1.4 million Ukrainian refugees. But my goodness, we're talking about the United States. I mean, even in some of the most recent genocides, the Uyghurs, the ongoing, just systematic, slow annihilation of the Palestinian population. Germany, during the Syrian civil war, the Germans took in over 1 million Syrians. We're talking about the United States here. This isn't the country that people flee from. It's usually the country that people flee to. And yet, you and I are having this discussion that if this form, we don't call Republicans a party here anymore. They're not. They're a corporation. But if this form of republicanism takes over the federal government again, and the only reason Republicans took the House back was gerrymandering. 10 seats alone, straight through gerrymandering, period, end of story. Just straight gerrymandering. And they only have an 8-seat majority. So there you go. But if they should regain control of the government again, this is a serious discussion. This is not hyperbole. This is not, we're not drawing a cartoon character or a dark comic book novel here. This is, you're talking about a segment of the society that has to sit at the kitchen table and say, what do we do? Where do we go? Where can we be safe? In the United States of America in 2023, 24, 25, and going forward. Where can we hide? Where do we go? And that should be a sobering thought to anyone from any political spectrum other than the ones that are driving this, of course, because they think they're somehow correct. I mean, it's got to be sobering. I can't imagine, again, I know I've said it before in the course of this interview, but I simply don't know. I realize more and more as I've gotten older and the deeper and deeper I've gotten into politics, then again, I was involved in politics since I came out of a womb. But I mean, as I began to understand more around it, how fortunate I am to look like this. How much it's made my life easier. How much easier it's made my life to be in heterosexual relationships. Even the bad ones. Even the failed ones. But still, from a public perception, how much easier that is. I can't imagine some of the discussions that you and your partner have to face. I truly can't. And I think until we can, again, as a society, as a community, until we can start to have some kind of inkling, some kind of basic, very base understanding, I fear that this is going to continue. Scapegoating's so easy. Gosh, scapegoating's so easy, isn't it? When it's only 3% of the population at max. I also don't want to get too deep into the biological science of this because it almost sounds like a justification. But history shows us that especially in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, most of the first sexual experiences for men were with each other in the bathhouses, especially the richer families. There are examples all through nature of same-sex and gender swapped roles, where the female goes out to hunt while dad stays and takes care of the eggs and the young. What we consider to be traditional gender roles, perhaps is maybe a better way I should say it. You are not some sort of science creation. You're a human being, and there have been folks like you throughout time. You are not new. You did not fall out of the sky. I hope I'm saying this right. I hope you understand what I'm getting at, or else I'm in a hell of a lot of trouble. But I mean, you are not some creation in a test tube that went wrong. You are simply a continuation of humanity that has always existed. I find it so strange that people can't grasp that, simply because it is a relatively small percent of the population, but it's not that you've never existed. You've always been here. Why do you think that's so hard for people to gather? When we there's the story of the two male penguins, and ducks, geese bond and mate for life, and there are numerous examples of two male and two females who will do the very same thing. There are examples all through nature. Why do you think you are different? Not you specifically, Dave, but why do you think you are different? What is so hard for folks to grasp about your own existence? I can't understand it. I truly can't. And I think I did ask you this earlier on in the show, but I mean, I just don't understand what is so hard to grasp.
I mean, the gender binary is a white supremacist colonial institution. And when certain European nations were colonizing much of the world, they were actually repressing the natural gender variance that was present in most indigenous cultures in Native America, in Africa, across the world. And so rather than trans people being some strange modern Western thing, trans people and gender variance, expansiveness has been around. And the thing that's fairly modern, is the colonial project to outlaw any kind of gender variance and make sure that women have to stay in their place and men have to stay in their place. And there are these very prescribed roles that are enforced by the society without any kind of freedom or wiggle room with those roles. And I try to talk to folks about this because I really think some folks feel like we're asking them for empathy and sympathy as a community. And in some ways, perhaps we are. But a lot of the time, I just talk to people like, the world that I'm trying to build is not one narrowly defined where trans people have it better, but one in which all of us are liberated from these repressive and strict gender boxes, cages that we're kept in. Women in general, whether or not they identify as LGBTQ, are deeply oppressed by the current way that we construct gender and that we talk about gender and that we enforce gender in this country. Men, whether or not they always see it that way, even though they're put on the top of the pedestal, are also suffering under this current patriarchal system because they're not allowed to access the full range of their human emotions and the full range of their human sensitivity and softness and possibilities for their life and how they want to live are very constrained as well as they are for women, but in different ways. And then, of course, trans people and LGBTQ people and anyone who doesn't fit in those narrow boxes are deeply oppressed and policed. But we all suffer, if we really reflect, we all suffer under this current system that says the possibilities for your life are determined by your genitals at birth. And you can never stray from that, and you can never expand beyond that, and you can never evolve from that, and you can't define what feels right to you. You have to do what we've prescribed to you. And in fact, in some states like Tennessee, we will literally arrest you for wearing the clothes of a different gender after this drag ban was passed. And that's the kind of world that we're living in. And that's going to affect, by the way, people who are not drag queens and drag kings. That's going to affect a woman who wants to wear a suit and is deemed too masculine. That's going to impact a man who maybe is in a punk band and wants to wear nail polish. Like, why are we policing this when we
Don't go
say
after
that
the Irish and the Scottish in their kilts. We're an angry people. We're an angry people. I'm just saying.
it's just, we all are impacted. And I feel like when you talk about it like that, none of us want the government to come to our house and say, you know, we're writing you a ticket for the outfit that you chose today. Like, this is not normal. This is getting so out of hand. And because people can't see themselves in it, perhaps they don't feel the urgency, but this will impact all of us. And there's a different way. We could live in a world in which, in a country in which the possibilities for our lives are about what speaks to us and what we think is beautiful and what we want to create with our life, instead of what we've been told we have to do because, again, our genitals looked a certain way when we were born, which to me is what seems radical and strange and modern and crazy.
Would you mind if I turn the phone line on as we get toward what I think is probably going to be the end of the program, somewhere around the 8 p.m. area? Would you be good with that while I read a couple comments? Let me add the phone line in here. Let me do some fancy typing here live on the air. Always fun when I can do that. Everybody enjoys listening to me type, and badly. And I forgot my own phone number for my own program. 7999. So we'll put that on the screen. Let me read a couple of comments out of the chat. I'm trying to drag my computer mouse over to my tablet. That's pretty stupid. It doesn't work like that. If we, Patricia mentions in the chat, if we cannot all agree on the definition of liberty, of freedom, or of equality, We cannot even have a discussion. So there's no talking to a certain segment of adults. We need to find and bring those who agree with us, by the way, or we need to bring together, I think is what she meant. I'm kind of paraphrasing here a little bit. Bring together those who agree with us. She also mentions in this same comment, by the way, the first books burned in Germany were the LGBTQ books. There's something to think about. Patricia mentions further going on, if you can convince someone to view another person as the other that you need to fear, getting them to hate is a pretty short next step. And it was President Johnson said something of a similar, when you can convince the poorest white man that the black man is coming for something he has, then you can steal the money right out of his pocket and he won't care because he'll be too busy hating the black man. And again, that's a butchering paraphrasing of what President Johnson said, but it is kind of the premise of it. If we're so focused on hating you, Daye, boy, it's hard to think about the money that the billionaires are taking out of my pocket, because you're a trans person and you're different and I don't like you and you're weird and I don't understand you, and it's just easier.
Yeah.
It's sad that we've become so simple as a society. That we've become so simple. We've become Doug the dog, squirrel. And
I want to speak to what that first comment mentioned, which is the idea that there are people that we are never going to convince. That is the case. We're not going to get the leaders of Moms for Liberty to realize their mistake, right? Because they're not acting in good faith, one, and because there's always going to be some people who don't get it and who will hold on to their hate of people who are different from them to the bitter last. But what we see, and we have polling data across the country that confirms this, part of why the opposition is choosing to attack trans people right now is that there's this squishy middle, it's called. There's a large section of about 30% of the population that don't feel like they know enough to form an opinion about trans people. They will even say that to a survey. And the opposition knows that they can fill that vacuum with disinformation and scare tactics. They're grooming, they're coming for your kids. This isn't safe. They'll use all this. And there's that 30% of that squishy middle who are like, well, I don't know anything about this. Maybe they're right. And that's the danger that we're in right now. You've got this group of people way on the extreme right who we are never going to reach. And they probably, went to January 6th and all of that stuff. And that's just what it is. But there's this 30% of people in the middle that we need to reach with our message so badly, because they are hearing from the whole right wing, propaganda infotainment sphere that trans people are a threat to their kids. And we need to show up with our messages of love and our messages of truth and education, like with our rally on March 31st at 1 p.m. at the state capitol steps in Harrisburg, which I hope everyone who's in the area will come to. And we need to say, no, that's not actually true. We're not a threat. These kids are friends with your kids and they're on the soccer team, and everything was going fine until a bunch of well-funded right-wing adults decided to make this their latest pet cause. And we can reach that squishy middle. We can reach those people that are undecided. And that is the battle right now, is that they're being pulled by both sides. And honestly, right now, they're being pulled much more by the right wing because they have millions of dollars to spend on reaching them. And we don't have a similar apparatus on the left of billionaires to just spend money on all of this stuff. So we have to, as advocates, as neighbors, as parents, reach our communities with the message of, hey, that misinformation is not true. We're just a part of the community. There's another way. And I think we will get there. But right now it's that scary moment when it's not clear which way it's going to go with this about 30% of the population who so far don't know much about trans people.
Phone line is open 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. If it rings, great. If it doesn't, we will probably wrap up around 8 p.m. Remember, the Villain's View comes your way 9 p.m. Eastern time on hot101.net and here on That Other Side of Information, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Whenever we finish, Sergeant Max starts at 9. He does not start immediately after us unless we go straight up to 9. If we stop early, he starts at 9. But please, if there's a gap in between, stick in. If you like what we do here, you will deeply enjoy what he does. It's a different style, but it is deeply important, and it's a voice that needs to be heard. You've seen him and heard him on our program probably, I think he's been with us over a half a dozen times now, and I beg you to stay in. And regardless of when our program finishes, stay tuned, stick around your devices, 9 p.m., The Villain's View. If you've missed any of tonight's program, That Other Side of Information on YouTube, George Rourke's Magic, and it will probably be posted there, I should say Tuesday or Wednesday. Give George a chance to do. Randall, you're right, because I forgot to click something, so try again. I forgot to click a button to make the phone work, which is pretty darn stupid of me. Ooh, the fancy radio guy goofed again. Forgot to switch the darn thing. So Google Voice invented this do not disturb, and it's so lovely. And I now turn it on during the week because I get so many solicitation spam calls from large call centers abroad. And then I forgot to switch it to start. So try again, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. What's the biggest thing that you want people to bring with them for this rally? And I'm not talking water or food or whatever. What do you want them to bring with them, either from here or from here?
Enthusiasm, love, excitement, willingness to learn, willingness to follow up with us and get involved. Your own homemade signs saying that trans youth belong here, keep our schools a place of learning, any kind of message like that that's uplifting and positive. And again, it's at 1 p.m. Friday, March 31st at the State Capitol steps in Harrisburg. There'll be a bunch of us out there. And
rain or shine, right? Rain or shine.
Rain or shine. We have big tent tarp things if there's rain. We're gonna be there. We're gonna be ready at 3 p.m.
The weather
afterwards.
so far appears as if it's going to be pretty warm. I think it's going to be close to 60. Rain is about a 50-50, but don't let that deter you. This is entirely too important. Randall, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Daye. Thank you for coming on Jeff's show number 1 first. Thank you for standing up for fellow trans rights and all LGBTQ plus rights. And I'm glad you understand that Moms for Liberty is not just against the rights of minority students on their sexuality, it's against the rights of any student to choose what they may read, what they may be denied by Moms for Liberty, because that's definitely part of their biggest gig, is censorship in the libraries. One of my daughters, my oldest daughter, she is an elementary school teacher, a librarian here in southeastern PA, her public school system. She gets all kinds of stuff happen. She went through, during the pandemic, I guess. Not during there. The summer before they went back to actual in-person learning, I guess, in 2001. She went to the library. She found these books that were from the 80s that were just outrageous. I mean, on drugs, on gays, the list just went down. Just absolutely these elementary books that were outrageous on their viewpoints, being so ancient, in my opinion. Yeah, me, the one saying ancient that's 70 plus years old, right? Anyway, I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to thank you for addressing the points I brought up in the chat on Moms for Liberty. I'm here in Delaware County, outside Philadelphia County. We're going to have I'm not sure of the date, but it's coming up very soon. We're going to have at our Delaware County Courthouse, we're going to have a rally against Moms for Liberty. The first rally I went to after Trump was elected in early 2017, the first rally I went to against his administration was his picking the capitalistic swine, DeVos, as Secretary of Education for the federal government. And yeah, I'm with you, sister. Okay. All right. Well, listen, man, I will let you go. Jeff, as usual, it's always a pleasure, sir.
Hey, listen, same marching orders that I always give you. You, your wife, your kids, your family, you stay healthy down there, because I know you've had some bouts. You just take care of yourself and stay healthy down there. And you make a good point, though. By extension, when you talk about, by you bringing up Moms for Liberty and allowing Daye to talk about Moms for Liberty, they have made trans people a target because they're an easy target. But it also speaks, you bring up a point that you didn't even know you brought up. And I would ask Daye to speak to this before we close the program. How important, Daye, especially with a group like Moms for Liberty circling around, and they are growing in Pennsylvania exponentially. I mean, they really are growing like a weed. How important does that make? We're in 2023 here in the Commonwealth. I know that we're not the only state that has school elections in odd numbered years. How important do these school board elections become when you've got a group like that hovering around and growing exponentially around our Commonwealth? Is part of your message, or has been part of your message, like Randall does as a committee person in Delaware County, as I do here in Northampton and throughout the state, country for that matter, planet, to tell people that these school board elections are really, really, really important? I assume you've made that part of your portfolio as well, is to just tell people, look, if this means something to you, if these rights and this defense and this equality means something to you, then darn it, these elections really mean something to you. Not just the presidential and Senate and Congress, but these school board elections mean everything to the health of your kids and the kids that sit next to them and that are in gym class with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, absolutely. And thank you, Randall, for bringing up all of the points that you made. We really have a lot of folks that are connected to the coalition who've decided to step up and run for school board that never wanted to run before, because these school districts are so under siege by the Moms for Liberty and all of those kind of astroturfed outside funded groups. So we are definitely encouraging folks to step up and run. We're encouraging folks to make sure that you vote in these school board elections. And our school board elections should never have been this politicized, but they have become this politicized. So who you vote for will very likely determine whether or not your district decides to go the way of Central Bucks and some of these others, where they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees to try to defend their anti-LGBTQ decisions, or whether your school district can get on with the business of teaching kids, which is what they're supposed to be about the whole time. And so vote in your school district elections, run if you can. And this is part of why the PA Coalition for Trans Youth and TAKE have decided that a big part of our strategy is to work with State Representative Hohenstein to introduce a bill that establishes statewide standards, because while this is all being played out at the school board level, which district you live in shouldn't determine whether your kid has rights or not. We should have a school standard for the state that says we are going to affirm trans kids. And we also do, in the meantime, need to be fighting it out at the school board level, making sure we're electing people who actually believe in public education and want our schools to be places of education instead of discrimination.
I want to turn the floor over. Randall, you all good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to let you go. Again, thank you, Dave, for coming on and sharing with us. Some of us need and some of us actually don't. I consider myself don't. I need to be educated, but I think a lot of people out there need to be educated. So thank you again. And God bless you. God bless you.
Well, you're retired. You get up to Harrisburg on Friday.
Guys, I have no car.
Oh, stop it. Get up there. Take a train. Get up there.
It's getting hard.
Go tour the Capitol.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Stay healthy, my friend. All right.
I'll be there in spirit. I can tell you that.
Or watch the live stream. Watch the live stream.
I'll be looking for a live stream to follow.
All right. Fair enough, my friend. You stay healthy, okay? Best to you and the family.
All right. God bless. Bye-bye.
Daye, I just want to turn the floor over to you. If there's anything that we didn't get to cover or any question that you didn't think you got to fully answer, any further information that you want to put out there, we've copied the article about the state senator from Nebraska onto the group page already. The event for Friday is already on the group page. The link is also in the chat. I also posted it to the group page, I think 2 days ago. It's there. You can find, you got to work hard not to be able to find it. If you can attend. If you can't attend, watch it. That's still support, because you'll get to hear the speakers, see the faces, see human faces, see the people behind this. So let me just turn the floor over to you. You know how we do it here at the end. Anything that we didn't get to cover, any topics we didn't get to cover, any answers that you didn't think you got to fully vet out, just how do people follow you? How do they contact you? How do they contact the coalition? How they contact Take? All that stuff, just floor is yours. You have at it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And anyone who's listening, thank you for listening in. You can find the coalition at Coalition for Trans Youth -PA on Facebook. You can feel free, if you have questions about the event, to contact me at baye@takebhm.org. That's takebhm.org. That's my email. And there will be a live stream on the Facebook page if you can't make it, but we encourage everyone to find a way to make it on Friday, because there's events all over the state. So if you can only get to your local one, that's fabulous too. But this one at the state capitol steps in Harrisburg is going to make a big statement. It's going to make the case to legislators why they should support the upcoming legislation that will protect trans kids. And again, it is Friday, March 31st at 1 p.m. at the state capitol steps in Harrisburg. We are going to meet at 3 p.m. at Glow, just a few blocks away in Harrisburg, for free refreshments and kind of chill time for people before they head back to wherever they're going. We're going to have amazing speakers, including trans youth, parents, State Representative Hohenstein, trans advocates of color. We've got a lot of amazing people that you'll want to hear from. We want it to be a celebratory feeling and an affirming feeling and a message of love. We know that we are having a lot of families, including trans young people, who are interested in attending. So just to actually have so many adults show up and say, we care about you and we support you, will make such a difference for people in general. And we're going to take this show on the road across Pennsylvania. We've had rallies in Chambersburg. We've had rallies in Northeast PA. We've done events all over the state. So this is just the beginning of our fight to get this bill passed and to make sure that trans kids are protected in Pennsylvania, but we need your help. Even if you don't know all the terms, even if you don't feel like you know enough, step in as an ally. We need your help. You're so welcome. And I hope that I will be at the event on Friday, announcing our wonderful speakers. So I hope that I see all of you then.
I hope some more lawmakers step up and support you before Friday as well. As wonderful it is as the representative is going to be there with you, it's a shame. I hope he's not alone. I sure
Yes.
hope he's not alone. It should not be. This is not, standing up for human rights is not a brave stance. It's common sense. And as wonderful it is that the representative will be there, I hope he's not alone. I hope some more of our elected officials stand there with you on Friday. I very much hope so. So I don't have enough words as usual to say thank you to you. I always run out of ways to say thank you. And one of these days, as well as I feel like I know you, we're actually going to be in the same physical space.
Yes,
I have no idea when, but one of these days, we will actually be in the same physical space in this electronic society here. As well as I feel I know you, we've actually never been in the same space. And Kristen, for that matter. Although I think you've met Kristen in person, but I haven't been there. But I hope one of these times.
Yes, please. I loved meeting Kristen. We all need to get together.
Well, summer's coming here in the valley. That means festival season. There's never a lack of things to do. Take a weekend off. Breathe and come see us.
My partner and I will make it one of our little trips that you plucked. We do.
More pictures, more online pictures from.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just be safe on Friday. I will be at work here in the valley, so I will not physically be able to be there, but I will keep a passive eye on the phone. As soon as I see it hits a stream, I'll try to get it shared out as many places as I can. So please stay safe on Friday. Enjoy it. Stand tall. Be loud. And I look forward to keeping an eye on it on Friday. And I'm just grateful that you're here again. You're always here when I ask, and you're always welcome here too. I mean, let us know how it went. And you know that you're welcome to come back here anytime. It doesn't have to be for 3 hours either. If you got a 5-minute thing that our folks need to know about, then you come on and you let us know. The door is open to you here always, and your partners in this movement. So you're always welcome here.
Thank you.
Stay safe Friday. Stay safe. I mean, have fun. It should be fun too, but stay safe out there.
We will, definitely.
Thank you. Have a
All
great
right. Thank you so much.
I want to leave you guys tonight with a happy story, or at least what I think is a happy story. Because I don't think we do enough happy stories here, unfortunately. I try sometimes, and here I am trying to shove my glasses over my headset, which I'm obviously not doing very well. If you're watching, it's not very good. Patricia mentions in the chat about the 2 different slates of school board candidates she has running in her community and how important it is, and that the set she's not supporting is getting big time help. Well, she's right. It's happening all across Commonwealth. If you support a slate of candidates, look, nobody, I've told you before, nobody knows how to stretch a dollar like a Democratic candidate for office. If you can give anything to the school board candidates that you support, then by God, do so. And please be careful going into this too. Pennsylvania has this very weird thing. I don't know why we allow it. In all the years that I lived in New Jersey and all of the New York politics that I was exposed to, this was never allowed. But in Pennsylvania, you were allowed to do something called cross-file, which means if I was running for school board, I could appear on the Republican primary ballot and the Democratic primary ballot. I have no idea why that's allowed. It seems ridiculous to me, but it is. And so if you are an ardent Democrat out there and you're confused about whom to support because you don't know who the real Democrats are, because you see the same name in the Democratic column and the same names in the Republican column, then go to your committee. Your Democratic committee should be able to tell you who's who. And to be perfectly fair and honest with you, if you are a Republican, and yes, there are Republicans that listen to this program, and you don't know who the real Republicans are, then you go check with your committee, although your committees usually do a hell of a lot better job of letting you know who's who than ours, unfortunately. Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. So as we approach the Pennsylvania primary on May 16, I think I have the right day, the 16th, do that work. Find out who the real Democrats are in these cross-filed races, both in the judiciary and your school boards. So before we say goodnight to you, I want to leave you with what I hope is a happy story. And if you've missed any of the program, we started right at 5 o'clock, 3 hours plus now. We're in our 4th hour, but we're going to wrap up shortly. YouTube.com/that other side of information. Georgia Workers Magic. It'll be on our YouTube channel probably by Wednesday. Possibly sooner, but probably Wednesday. It's usually a fair time. Give George a little time. I want to leave you with what I hope is a good story. I posted this to that other side of information 2 days ago, so that would have been Friday. It is from The Guardian. I have to say, I continue to check all the sources that I normally check every week, every day. I just haven't seen a lot of good stories from the Canadian Broadcasting or the BBC lately. It really has been Lehigh Valley Live for local and Pennsylvania, and The Guardian for national and international. Just haven't seen a lot of good stories out of the BBC or CBC lately. I continue to check them. I just haven't seen anything very good. So here's the story. And I'm going to play a little bit with my headset so I can get my glasses on. Hold on one second. I have to get my glasses on because I can't read this. And I can't get my glasses on with the headset on. And it is very weird to talk into the microphone, not hear myself. Or not hear myself in the way that I'm used to hearing myself. Let's put it that way. Escaped cow that tore through Brooklyn finds home at sanctuary. Now, in my environmental talks with you and the programs that we have done on the environment, I have talked a lot about, I don't know if I'd say a lot, but I've talked a lot, I guess, a bit, fair amount, about veganism, vegetarianism, and I do talk a lot about animal care here. I consider myself an animal advocate. I do not donate time at dog and cat shelters because if I did, I'd be that guy. I'd have 50 cats here. Because they all deserve, you want to really think of it in a way. I know Randall's still listening. He's going to agree with me. You really want to consider yourself pro-life? Go adopt. Go adopt a dog. Go adopt a cat. Eat less meat. Really want to consider yourself pro-life? Want to stop being a hypocrite about it? Try that. Try that. Adopt. But that's a different topic for a different day. Let me just read a little bit. Again, this is a good story. I want to try to end on a positive. I have never tried to tell you how to eat. I've never tried to convince people to become vegans. I wish I had the inner strength and discipline to become a vegan. I simply can't. I enjoy chicken too much. And once or twice a month, I really enjoy a burger. But I do think that at the very minimum, and I actually do consider this to be a minimum, we can advocate and stand up that the animals that we use for food can be, should be, must be treated better. 96% of all the mammal life on Earth is now humans and livestock. That is an ecological imbalance that is unsustainable. It is a part of the global climate crisis that we don't talk about. 96% of all the mammalian is the correct word, but I'm trying to keep it simpler. All the mammalian life on Earth are humans and the animals we raise for food. And overwhelmingly, those animals that we raise for food are treated absolutely horribly. If you've ever seen pigs and cattle on these trailers being taken to slaughter, the way they're shoved in together, the sheer misery in their faces, most of which knowing where they're going. If you've ever seen the cages where ducks and geese are force-fed so their livers will engorge and become fattened, so just so we can have foie gras. The Japanese are making a concerted effort to reintroduce whale meat into their diets. Whale meat! Because the whales, I guess, are just not endangered enough. The government's definition, if you've never seen the documentary, which I think is called, oh crap, it's Morgan Spurlock's his follow-up to his first documentary where he ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days. He did a second one where he actually opened a fast food restaurant. You find out in the course of it that the actual definition of free range. See, I thought when I brought free range chicken that I was actually doing something good. It's a chicken that had a whole farm field to wander around and have a somewhat decent life before it was on my plate. The definition of free range is that these huge storehouses that hold thousands and thousands and thousands of chickens, as long as you can open a side door and they can get about 6 inches outside, that's considered free range. And that these chickens are literally, they've been so genetically modified and there's so many steroids in the food now that they're literally only meant to live about 6 weeks. And that they grow so heavy that their legs can't support their own weight. So it's not my right, I don't think. If you truly believe in personal freedom, which the Supreme Court doesn't seem to, at least not for women. But if you really are a conservative and you believe in personal liberty, I don't have the right to tell you all how to eat. I genuinely think it would be incorrect and wrong for me to do. But I do think we can show a hell of a lot more humanity in how we feed ourselves. That means legitimately free-range chickens, cows that are allowed to live more than a few months, stuffed so full of hormones and growth that they actually have a life. Mother cows that are not ripped from their children and vice versa. We've seen the videos of mother cows chasing cattle trailers down driveways of farms because their calves are inside. These are thinking, feeling creatures. They have souls. God gave us, if you're a Christian, if you're of any faith, really, God gave us dominion over the earth to be its steward, not to destroy it and extract it until it had nothing left. And it's that spirit in which I bring you this story, if I can bring it up on my phone, because my phone is not helping me right now. We'll go to 8:30. Let's put it that way. Escaped cow that tore through Brooklyn finds home at sanctuary. It's been one hell of a week for the quote unquote Canarsie cow, a Black Angus calf who started this week on his way to a slaughterhouse and will end it settling into his new home on a New Jersey farm. This is a story from The Guardian written by Aliana Demopoulos of The Guardian. And you can find it on our Facebook page, that other side of information. After he escaped from, I continue to read, second paragraph of the article. After he escaped a truck hauling him from a Pennsylvania farm to a certain death at Saba Live Poultry in Canarsie, Brooklyn, he went on a rampage through the streets. Slaughterhouse employees and workers at a nearby pizza shop tried to catch up with him in a chase that lasted several minutes. Though the liberated calf was eventually subdued and brought to the slaughterhouse, he found a hero in Mike Stura, the owner of Skylands Animal Sanctuary and an animal rights advocate who makes a habit of rescuing renegade livestock. Stura secured the cow's release during a 3-hour phone call with the farm owner and the manager of Saba Live Poultry, which Gothamist, I don't know what Gothamist is, described as tense. Stura would not comment on exactly how he clinched the deal. He does not want to reveal his methods, but he did make clear that he does not pay for any animals. A worker at Saba declined to comment. Paying would be counterproductive. My goal, Stura, who is vegan, told The Guardian, we don't want there to be any slaughterhouses, so how can we be animal advocates and pay them at the same time? Initially, the cow was reported as being a baby girl, but Stura had his doubts. I saw him jump a fence in that video, and I saw he had something hanging underneath. Turns out the cow is in fact male. Stura named him Stewie. Stewie will live his life on Skylands, New Jersey animal rescue, where over 400 animals live together on 232 rolling acres of pasture. Visitors can go for a day trip or stay at the farm's bed and breakfast to meet other celebrity livestock like Freddie, another slaughterhouse escapee who made headlines after bolting from a cage in Queens, and Brianna, who jumped from a transport truck as it sped down Interstate 80 near Patterson. I'm not here to tell you how to eat. I simply can't. I just don't think it's my right. But we can eat with more of a conscience. Mr. Stura's rescue is full of animals who knew they were going to be slaughtered and ran for their lives in an effort to save their own lives. Tell me that these souls are not sentient, that they're not feeling, that they don't have. You can't tell me any of it. Their lives need not be so miserable. These are not machines. They are not robots. They do not have interchangeable parts. They have souls. They're alive. And we can treat them that way. We can still have a burger. We can still have a steak. I still love chicken, way too much, probably. Excuse me. I saved that the whole show. I have a tickle in here again, a little itch. As my allergies start, it's going to get worse. And the allergies did kick up today because, boy, was it windy. It was bright, sunny, gorgeous, and windy. The flowers are starting to bloom. The trees are popping, and it's going to get ugly around here pretty soon. But we can do both. We can eat healthy. We can enjoy a steak. We can enjoy fried chicken and roasted chicken. And hell, I'm a little child at heart. Sometimes I like chicken nuggets and chicken tenders and fries. I especially love them at sporting events. I just do. But we can be more ethical about it. When do the humans show humanity? We are the top of the food chain. We are the preeminent living beings on the planet, period. We dominate everything. If we will not be the example, who's going to do it? The dolphins are not going to come out of the oceans and save the cows. The chickens are not going to go into the oceans and save the whales. The pigs are not going to save the pangolins. We have to do that. And we can. We can. You can still have a burger. I still enjoy a burger occasionally. I really don't eat beef the way I used to when I was a kid, but I still do enjoy it. I'm not gonna, it tastes good. I can't help it. It just does. I don't have the discipline to become a vegan. I just don't. But that doesn't mean that we can't be more ethical, that we can't care more. These are God's creatures as much as we are. They have souls. They care. When a female cow is separated from one of its calves, go watch the videos. It's not hard to find. Go search it. Go search the way stray cats will take care of their young, even when they're dying and starving. When the mother cat is dying and starving, literally giving whatever it has left to its young. How stray dogs will take stray cats to keep them alive and nurse them. We can learn so much. In the same way that the United States can learn from Europe, humans can learn from the animal kingdom. Hell, humans can learn from past humans. It's not an unknown fact, and it should not come as a surprise to many of you. I learned it in school, that when indigenous tribes killed for food, they would do a ceremony. They would offer a prayer to the spirits for the animal whose life they had taken. They offered prayers of sorrow, of remorse. They asked for forgiveness and then offered prayers of thanks. They asked the spirit world to accept the spirit of the animal whose life they had just taken to sustain themselves. And they only hunted when they needed. And they used every part of the body. It seems to me that we could learn a lot from that spirit, from that ideal. We could continue to learn a lot from that ideal. We really could. I wonder, one of the first industries where the so-called illegal immigrant was encouraged was in the meatpacking industry. It started with the Nixon administration, where the meat packers literally took in a sack full of cash, dropped it on the President Nixon's desk, and said, please look the other way. We need to break this union. And they did. And it got worse with Reagan. The meatpacking industry used to run full-page ads in Spanish throughout Mexico, Central and South America. Come to America for a job. They came in the country, they stole their green cards, they put them to work and paid them pennies a day and broke the unions. But even as desperate as those folks were to take those jobs, I do have to wonder how someone 40 hours a week, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, probably, can do nothing but kill and be knee deep in blood. How they can take a living creature, walk it in, have that creature look them in the eye, and then kill them. I sure as hell couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'm not unique, I don't think, but I sure as hell couldn't do it. And yeah, I know I wouldn't enjoy that burger if somebody didn't do it. I get it. I get it. I'm not stupid. I get it. But we can certainly put a hell of a lot more humanity into the system. 8:29, we're going to end here at 8:30. I want to thank our guest, Daye Pope. She is truly an amazing human being. She is a genuinely amazing human being. It's not easy to stare that much hate in the face every single day and fight back against it, but yet she does. The people who are hated the most, who stand up to it, are the ones who actually protect all the rest of us. That's what she does. She's not just fighting for her own rights, she's fighting for all of us. We need to come to that realization. I'm exceptionally grateful and humbled that she was able to come and visit us again. I think, like I said, I think it was the third time now, and especially to be here for 3 hours. It's a lot of time. I get it. And we're very, very grateful. Again, the rally is on Friday, 1 p.m. in Harrisburg, the state capital of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if you're listening around the world or anywhere else in the country, you can stream it. I'm going to do everything I can to remember to have my phone up and open. It will actually be on my lunch hour when this thing starts. I will put it on that other side of information. I will stream it there. I hope you will watch it. I hope you can support them in any way possible. If you cannot be in Harrisburg, watch the stream, share it, talk about it, comment on it. Another way you can support the trans community is in these school board elections. I'm telling you, the two things are linked. They go together. That does it for us for this week. We are planning to return next week. No guests currently booked, but we plan to be here next week. It might just be me rambling on, or maybe I'll actually have to talk to Randall for even longer. I'm kidding, Randall. I'm kidding. You know I love talking to you. Or I'll talk to Franz for the whole show. I've never talked to Franz for the whole show yet. Maybe I'll have to do that. Maybe we'll tell Kennedy stories. That said, we are planning to be here next week. Next week is April 2nd. We will be back with you live on April 2nd. Now, April 2nd is... Oh my God, my phone is really fighting with me. I'm trying to get to my calendar. April 2nd is Palm Sunday. April 9th is Easter. So we will not be with you on Easter, but we will be here next week, Palm Sunday. We will not be here Easter, and then we will be here on the 16th. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So that's it for us for tonight. For our guest, Daye Pope, for DJ Lexus, DJ Earl, DJ Chino, Waterboy, anybody, Purple Freak, everybody at Hot 101. I know I'm missing folks, but for my entire Hot101.net family, for my TCP Media Group family, Whitney, Marquise. Whitney and Marquise celebrated an anniversary this week. For Andrew and Taekwon, for all of us here at the Kennedy Effect, for Lynn and George Dare, for, of course, April Riddick, whom none of this would be possible without her, and of course for Kristen, who is out on the road. I am Jeff Kennedy. We are thrilled that you were here. Again, if you missed any of the program, youtube.com/that other side of information, youtube.com/that other side of information. Stay tuned to the home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, to watch the rally on Friday. And I think that does it for us. We've done all the damage we can do for 1 week. We shall see you a week from tonight, 5 p.m., April 2nd, 5 p.m. That's it for us. For everybody, I think I said everybody already. I did that part, right? Yeah, I think so. Until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other. You mean a great deal to all of us. We are a society and we are a community. So what happens to you happens to us. It affects us. We all affect each other. The better we all do is the better we all do. So take care of yourselves and each other, and we shall see you next week. Until then, take care. Thank you. Take care.